Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to Unacademy All India Prelims Mock Test Paper Discussion number 2. At the expense of repeating myself, for Prelims 2024, you should attempt as many full-length mock tests as possible. At Unacademy, we have planned 3 full-length mock tests for the civil services aspirants targeting Prelims 2024, GS as well as CSAT. The first one was held on the 26th of May. The second one was held yesterday, and you would know a day later we conduct the analysis of that paper as well. And the third one shall be conducted on the 2nd of June. If you are in Delhi and want to attempt this test offline so that you can be aware of the environment that you will see on the 16th of June, then please attempt this test offline as well. But those who can't attend it offline, there is always an opportunity to attend this test on the Unacademy app. So I urge you, I request you, please take my advice, take this test, attempt this test on the 2nd of June, offline or online, your choice. But please attempt this, and the next day, on the 3rd of June, we will conduct the analysis of the question paper as well. So let's get started and look at all the questions that were asked in yesterday's full-length mock test paper. We'll start with polity, followed by international relations and other subjects one by one. Let's get started and look at the polity questions. But before we do that, I urge you to support us by liking this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of these sessions with your friends and fellow aspirants. Let's get started and look at question number 1, question number 31 as it appeared in the question paper in the mock test, but question number 1 from polity. With reference to NHRC, consider the following statements. It is a statutory body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It can punish the violators of human rights and award monetary relief to the victim. The NHRC is empowered to inquire into matters only within 1 year of its occurrence. Its recommendations are binding on the government, on the concerned government or authority. This topic is important because you may be aware of Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions. Every 5 years, for a national human rights organizations, it performs something called accreditation. If our NHRC gets A, then it can be a member of this organization, it can participate in the organs of the United Nations, it can also take the governance positions in this organization. But if it is B, then it can participate in the meetings, but it cannot vote, it cannot take the governance positions. And now for the second time in 2 years, the accreditation for our National Human Rights Organization, Human Rights Commission, has been deferred by this Global Alliance because of some allegations, because of some controversy, and this topic we have discussed in Conquered Prelims Crash Course as well. So this topic is important. It is a statutory body, which is true. It is a statutory body, but it does not fall under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It's under the Ministry of Home Affairs. It's a statutory body which was created, enacted because of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 in compliance with the Paris Principles. And that is why this organization, this Global Alliance, in granting accreditation, it will have to check whether the National Human Rights Commission is following, adhering to these Paris principles or not, which basically means autonomy, which basically means all the different sections of the society, minorities should get membership of this Human Rights Commission. It can punish the violators of human rights and award monetary relief. It does not have the power to punish. Its recommendations are only advisory in nature. They are not even binding. So it does not have the power to punish. But NHRC is empowered to inquire into a matter only within 1 year of its occurrence. So a human rights abuse violation has taken place within a period of 1 year, then NHRC is empowered to inquire into that matter. So A, only one is the right answer. Let's look at question number 2. Consider the following features: dual polity, division of powers, bicameralism. How many of the above are federal features of Indian Constitution? You would know that there are 5 important characteristics of US Constitution which makes US Constitution federal. Because for constitutional experts to look at a particular constitution and then decide whether this constitution is federal or unitary, what it does, they look at this constitution and compare it with the Constitution of the United States. If it matches, then it's a federal constitution. If it doesn't, then it is something else. But what are these characteristics which make US Constitution a federal one? 5 important characteristics. Number 1, dual polity or dual government, which means government at the center, government in the states as well. Second, division of powers, or what we can call the distribution of powers. That means powers should be distributed between the center and the state. Some matters to the center, some matters to the states. Third, the constitution should be written. Fourth, this constitution should be supreme as well. Supremacy of the constitution, or what we can also call sometimes the rigidity of the constitution. Now, rigidity does not mean that constitution cannot be amended or it is very difficult to amend the constitution. Rigidity means if we need to amend the constitution, it should be a joint act of both center as well as states. Both center and states, they have to come together to amend the constitution. Unilaterally center on its own or states on their own cannot change the constitution. And fifth one, independence of judiciary. All these are the 5 important characteristics which make US Constitution a federal constitution. But so far as India is concerned, what are these characteristics or features which we can call federal features of Indian Constitution? Because Indian Constitution, you would know, is neither completely unitary nor completely federal. It is quasi-federal. Some say it is a federal constitution with some unitary features. Some experts say it is a unitary constitution with some federal features. But we can all agree on a name, on a term, that it is quasi-federal. Or we can say our constitution has some centralizing tendency. Although it is federalism, but there are some provisions of the constitution which are biased in favor of a strong center. But be that as it may, what are the federal features of our constitution? Dual polity, correct. Division of powers, yes. Bicameralism, where at the center, for example, we have 2 houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is the House of Elders, but also Council of States. It represents the interest of states in Indian Parliament. So it's a federal chamber of Indian Parliament. So C, all the 3 is the right answer. Let's look at another question. Consider the following statements. Source of authority of the Constitution, objectives of the Constitution, date of adoption of the Constitution. How many of the above are revealed by the preamble to the Indian Constitution? We the people of India, which means the first thing that preamble tells us, what is the source of authority of the Constitution? From where does the Constitution derive its authority? From the people of this country, we the people. Second, it tells us what is the nature of the Indian state. What is the nature of the Indian state? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Then what are the objectives of the Constitution? Justice, social, economic, political, liberty, equality, fraternity, dignity of an individual. And we have given to ourselves this Constitution on the 26th of November 1949, which is the date on which the Constitution was adopted. So all these 3 things are revealed by the preamble. And you would know preamble is the philosophy of the Constitution. It's the identity card of the Constitution. Clear? It's also an integral part of the Constitution. Another question. The elected members of both houses of the parliament, the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states, the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. How many of the above are constituents of the President's Electoral College in India? President is elected by the people of India, correct? Yes. But not directly, indirectly. How? Through their representatives who are part of the Electoral College. Now, who are part of the Electoral College? Elected members of both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, which means the 12 nominated members of Rajya Sabha, they are not part of the Electoral College. Before 2020, there used to be 2 Anglo-Indians nominated to Lok Sabha. Those also were not part of the Electoral College. Elected members of the legislative assemblies, they are part of the Electoral College. Because prior to 2020, there used to be 1 nominated MLA to a legislative assembly as well. There could have been from Anglo-Indian community. Now that reservation is no longer available. So elected members of both houses of the parliament, elected members of the state legislative assemblies, not the legislative councils, and the MLAs, elected MLAs of 2 union territories which have a legislative assembly right now, which is Delhi and Puducherry. How many are part of the Electoral College? All 3. Clear? But what is the Electoral College for the Vice President of India? The Electoral College for the Vice President of India consists of members of both houses of the parliament, which means nominated as well as elected. But that is for the Vice President, that's not for the President of India. Clear? Let's look at another question. Consider the following statements about to the funds under Members of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme, MP-LADS. MP-LAD funds must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health, education. You would know that under this scheme, if I am the member of the parliament, I can recommend works to the tune of 5 crores per annum. This money will not be given to me. I will have to recommend it to the district collector that create durable assets in my constituency to the tune of 5 crore rupees every year, which can be laying down a road, which can be laying down a water pump, durable assets. So this statement is correct. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has been responsible for policy formation, release of funds and prescribing monitoring mechanism for implementation of the scheme. Yes, this scheme is under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. MPs are required to wait for the actual fund to be released by the ministry before recommending new projects? No. That is not necessary now, because even if the previous funds were not released, you can still recommend works. A specified portion of each MP's fund must benefit SC/ST populations. 5 crores per annum, 15% of it you could spend on the SC population areas, 7.5% on the ST population areas. So yes, specific amount portion of this fund is for the SC/ST population. How many given statements is or are correct? C. Only 3 is the right answer, because the third statement is incorrect. With reference to the constitutional developments, the Verma Committee of 1999 was appointed. J.S. Verma Committee of 2013 is different. That was constituted to suggest changes in our criminal laws following the horrific gang rape of Nirbhaya on December 16, 2012. So that is to suggest reforms in our criminal laws. In 1999, it was set up to identify the existence of legal provisions for the implementation of fundamental duties. Because fundamental duties applicable only for the citizens of India under Part 4 capital A of the Constitution, under Article 51 capital A of the Constitution. Fundamental duties originally were not part of the Constitution. They were added to the Constitution by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. But these duties were applicable on the citizens, but these duties were not binding as well. Binding in the sense there was no law which could punish you if you're not following the fundamental duty. But then Verma committee was asked, can you identify, are there legal provisions for the implementation of fundamental duties? Said yes. Look at the Protection of Insults to National Honors Act, Wildlife Protection Act. For example, one fundamental duty is to abide by the Constitution, respect its ideals, national flag and the national anthem. If you disrespect it, you can be booked under Protection of Insults to National Honor Act 1971. So there is a legal provision for that. This is something that you are aware of. D is the right answer. Let's look at question 39. Consider the following statements. In financial matters, Rajya Sabha has less powers than Lok Sabha. This is correct. Why? Because money bill can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, not in Rajya Sabha. Even financial bill under Article 117 can be introduced only in Lok Sabha and not in Rajya Sabha. And even the passage of money bill, Rajya Sabha has an inferior role. Because once a money bill is passed by Lok Sabha by simple majority, it is sent to Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha cannot reject a money bill. Rajya Sabha cannot amend a money bill. Rajya Sabha can only make recommendations to a money bill. But if these recommendations are not acceptable to Lok Sabha, even then the bill is passed. If Rajya Sabha does not act on this money bill for 14 days, even then the bill is passed. So I'm sure you are aware of these details. So yes, this statement is correct. In financial matters, Rajya Sabha has less powers than that of the Lok Sabha. Only Lok Sabha can vote on the demand for grants. This is also correct. Only Lok Sabha can vote on the demands for grants. Clear? And this voting can only take place on the expenditure made on the Consolidated Fund of India, not on expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. And that's something you're aware of. But what is the question asking? Both statement 1 and 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. Both statement 1 and 2 are correct, and statement 2 is not the correct explanation for statement 1. I would go with B. Why? Because it's an implication. Rajya Sabha has inferior role as compared to Lok Sabha. One such implication of that is only Lok Sabha can vote on the demand for grants. But this does not explain statement 1. What explains statement 1 is no taxation without representation. That was the cry in United States. That's without our representation, without giving representation to the people. No taxes should be imposed. So since Lok Sabha is directly elected by the people and Rajya Sabha is not directly elected by the people, that is why tax matters, money matters. Lok Sabha has more powers as compared to Rajya Sabha. So both statements are correct, but statement 2 is not the correct explanation of statement 1. Clear? Let's look at another question. Consider the following matters. Ordinary bill, constitutional amendment bill, impeachment of the president, removal of a Supreme Court judge. The Constitution of India provides for a joint sitting of the two houses of the parliament when there occurs a deadlock over how many of the above mentioned matters. On an ordinary bill, there can be a deadlock. And what is this deadlock? Let's suppose this bill originated in Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha passes this bill, Rajya Sabha rejects this bill. If Rajya Sabha rejects this bill, then there is a deadlock. And to resolve this deadlock, there is a provision of joint sitting. There can be a joint sitting. It's not mandatory that whenever there is a deadlock, there has to be a joint sitting. There can be joint sitting. Second option can be Lok Sabha passes a bill, Rajya Sabha amends this bill. And when this bill is sent back to Lok Sabha does not agree with these amendments, which means there is a deadlock. And to resolve this deadlock, there can be a joint sitting of the two houses. Or Lok Sabha passes a bill, Rajya Sabha does not act for 6 months. After the expiry of 6 months, there is a deadlock, and to resolve this deadlock, there can be a joint sitting of the two houses. So this deadlock can be for an ordinary bill. For a constitutional amendment bill, no. Why? Because Constitution says a constitutional amendment bill under Article 368 should be passed by both houses of the parliament separately. There is no provision for joint sitting. For impeachment of the president also, there is no joint sitting. For the removal of the Supreme Court judge also, there is no joint sitting. Separately, both houses should pass these resolutions. So A, only one is the right answer. Clear? Let's look at another question. The Constitution of India has not fixed the term of office of members of the Rajya Sabha, correct? Because that is something that Representation of the People Act 1951 talks about. That the term of Rajya Sabha MP is, listen to me carefully, not the term of Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, don't confuse yourself. Rajya Sabha is the permanent house of Indian Parliament, not subject to dissolution. So we are talking about what is the term of office of a Rajya Sabha MP, and that is 6 years, provided by the Representation of the People Act, that is not mentioned in the Constitution. But how do we ensure that Rajya Sabha is the permanent house? 1/3 of the members retire every 2 years. But who are these 1/3 members who will retire after 2 years? The Representation of the People Act gave this power to the President of India. Through a draw of lots, 1/3 were made to retire. Then in 1954, through a draw of lots, 1/3 were made to retire again. I am sure you are aware of it. That's something that we have also taught in the class. I have also taught in the class, but here that power is with the President, not with the Chairman. So this statement is incorrect. So statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. That is why C is the right answer. Consider the following pairs. 4th schedule talks about allocation of seats in Lok Sabha and union territories. 4th schedule talks about what? Representation of states in the Rajya Sabha. Who talks about allocation of seats in Lok Sabha to the states and union territories? That is provided by the Representation of the People Act 1950. So this is not correctly matched. 5th schedule talks about the administration of the scheduled areas and tribal areas in states other than Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura. Why not these 4 states? Because these 4 states are dealt separately under Schedule 6 of the Constitution. So this is correctly matched. 8th schedule talks about the languages recognized by the Constitution. Yes, there are 22 languages recognized under 8th schedule. If you need further information, then initially there were 14 languages at the time of the commencement of the Constitution. So this is also correctly matched. So B, only 2 are correctly matched. Let's look at the last question from Indian polity. In India, consider the following statements about alternate dispute resolution, ADR. In India, Lok Adalats are part of ADR, but their final decision is not binding on the parties and is appealable in a court of law. It is binding. the decision of the Lok Adalat is binding on the two parties if these two parties have approached this Lok Adalat together. But yes, you can still file a new petition before the court. But this decision of the Lok Adalat cannot be appealed before another court. DPSPs of equal justice and free legal aid as engraved in Article 39A of Indian Constitution can be achieved through ADR. This 39A, which talks about a duty on the state, that what you have to do, you have to, whether through laws or through schemes, provide for free legal aid, equal justice. And this is a directive principle of state policy, and this is something which was added to the Constitution. It was not originally part of the Constitution. It was added to the Constitution by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 1976. One more further detail, that's something that we have discussed in crash course as well, but I can tell you here as well, lest you forget. Delhi Law University's Project 39A is based on Article 39 capital A. So 2 only is the right answer. That is it. From the world of Indian polity, these questions we had to discuss, which were asked in the mock test which was held yesterday. Again, I'll repeat myself, another test is to be conducted on the 2nd of June, GS as well as CSAT, offline as well as online. If you want an offline environment, please go to Delhi. The link is provided in the video description and attempt that test. If not, there is always an option of attending the test online. That is it from the discussion on Indian polity. I'll ask and request Chethan sir to come and discuss the questions related to international relations. And if you've understood these polity topics, please don't forget to press the like button. I'll see you again with another discussion on Indian polity on the 3rd of June, 2024. Please wait. Don't go anywhere. Chethan sir is here anytime now. See you. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, very good afternoon and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to the All India Prelims mock test. So this is mock test number 2 and the test was conducted yesterday as you all know, and today we are discussing the important questions and analyzing the question paper. Now before I start, I know Sarmad sir has already announced this, but there could be some students who might have just joined us. So please note that we are conducting All India Prelims mock test to help you prepare for the upcoming prelims exam. 2 mock tests are already done and the third test will be conducted on the 2nd of June. So do take up these tests without fail. The link for the same is provided in the video description below. And also don't forget, if you guys are liking our initiatives, which is helping you revise current affairs and static topics through MCQs, if you're liking and benefiting from this, do support us with your likes, with your comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's begin with the discussion of IR questions in the second mock test. Let's look at question number 89. Consider the following statements regarding Operation Sankalp. The first statement says, Indian Navy launched Operation Sankalp to deal with the deteriorating maritime security situation across the Indo-Pacific region. This statement is incorrect. Why? Because Operation Sankalp was initially launched in 2019 by the Indian Navy. And the purpose of Operation Sankalp was to secure the shipping channels near the Strait of Hormuz that you can see here in the map. The Hormuz Strait is a strategic choke point that links the Persian Gulf over here with the Gulf of Oman. It's one of the most important shipping routes, especially for oil shipments, and countries like India are heavily dependent on this shipping route. Back in 2019, tensions had escalated between US and Iran had started disrupting the movement of ships through the Hormuz Strait. There were few non-state actors who were allegedly sponsored by Iran who were targeting the oil-carrying cargo ships through the Hormuz Strait. So this was posing a threat to oil shipments and the commercial shipping traffic, which could have an adverse impact on the Indian economy, especially on India's energy security. It's in this context that Indian Navy launched a maritime operation called Operation Sankalp. Since then, Operation Sankalp has been expanded as well, not just to deal with non-state threats posed by various extremist groups in the region, but even the threats posed by piracy extending towards Horn of Africa. Because in the last few months, we saw an increase in piracy incidents off the coast of Somalia near the Gulf of Aden, extending towards Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And after the Gaza war began in West Asia, the Houthis of Yemen, who are also allegedly sponsored by Iran, they started retaliating against Israeli and American interests, and they started targeting the commercial ships passing through the Red Sea route. So following these heightened tensions due to pirate attacks and attacks by Houthis and other non-state actors, Indian Navy expanded Operation Sankalp across the Gulf region. So it's not focused on the entire Indo-Pacific. That is why statement 1 is incorrect. It is focused only on the Gulf region. You can see statement number 4, which says Operation Sankalp ensures the safe passage of Indian flagged vessels in the Gulf region. This statement is absolutely correct. The mission or the primary objective of Operation Sankalp is to stabilize these shipping routes through the Hormuz Strait initially, later through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait as well. So that is why 1 is incorrect and 4 is correct. Now let's look at statement number 2. Operation Sankalp is part of a EU-led coalition force under the command of NATO. This statement is incorrect because Operation Sankalp is a standalone mission of the Indian Navy alone. It's not under the command of any foreign multinational force. Of course, India cooperates with other countries. The Indian Navy works closely with the navies of European countries, United States, Japan, and even China. We collaborate with them, we coordinate during these anti-piracy missions and other safety missions in the Gulf region, right? We do collaborate with the foreign navies, but it's not under the command of NATO and it's not a part of a EU-led coalition. So that is why the statement is completely incorrect. Of course, the EU naval forces, they have their own anti-piracy missions going on in the region. Other countries like US, China, Japan, and even Australia, they all have their naval deployments in the same region. We do work with them, coordinate with them, but Operation Sankalp is not part of it, right? It's an independent standalone mission of the Indian Navy, so statement 2 is wrong. Statement 3 says it aims to secure international shipping routes against the threats posed by piracy and attacks from non-state actors like the Houthi rebels. We just understood that this statement is absolutely correct. So what's the right answer? How many statements are correct? Only Two statements are correct, so option B becomes the right answer. Let's look at question number 90. Consider the following statements. We need to check which of the given statements are correct. The first statement says MQ-9B Sea Guardian is a maritime focused version of the Sky Guardian remotely piloted aircraft system from the United States of America. Remotely piloted aircraft system is nothing but an unmanned aerial vehicle, a UAV, or as we call it, a drone. Recently, the MQ-9B drones, also popularly called the Predator drones from the United States, has been in the news. The US forces have used the Predator drones in various conflict zones from Yemen to Afghanistan to Iraq. And last year, when PM Modi visited the United States, India and US have signed a government-to-government deal to procure 31 of these armed drones. They will be distributed between all the three armed forces of India. Some of them are the maritime version or the maritime variant called the Sea Guardian. The Sea Guardian is a maritime variant of the Predator drone. So it can be specifically used for intelligence gathering, surveillance and reconnaissance. And since these are armed drones which carry offensive missiles and weapon systems like the Hellfire missiles, it can be used for target acquisition and targeted strikes as well. Understood? So some of them will be for the Indian Navy. These are the maritime variants called the Sea Guardian. We are also procuring the Sky Guardian variant for Indian Army and also the Indian Air Force. So that is why the topic was in news. So statement 1 is absolutely correct. It's produced by General Atomics, which is a major aerospace and defense manufacturer from the United States. Now looking at second statement, India is procuring the unarmed version of the sea and land based variants for ISR missions only. This statement is obviously wrong. We are not procuring the unarmed version. We are procuring the armed variant of the MQ-9B drones, and they can be used not just for ISR missions, they can be used for target acquisition and as well as for strike missions, offensive strike missions as well. So the correct answer would be option A, 1 only. Let's look at the next question, question number 91. Consider the following statements. We need to check which of the given statements is or are correct. First statement says Operation Prosperity Guardian is a US-led military operation by a multinational coalition to respond to Houthi-led attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Second statement says Mission Aspidus is a EU naval mission to protect cargo ships in the Red Sea from Yemen's Houthi rebels. So this question, this topic is of course related to what we discussed earlier under Operation Sankalp, but it helps you cover other important related news items which were in the current affairs, such as Operation Prosperity Guardian and Mission Aspidus. As you all know, after the Gaza war began in October 2023, the Houthis from Yemen, who are allegedly sponsored by Iran, they started retaliating against Israeli and American interests, as I was mentioning earlier. So in the Red Sea in particular, near Bab al-Mandeb Strait over here, and also in the Gulf of Aden, and extending towards the Arabian Sea, closer to the coastline with India. Across this entire stretch, from Red Sea to Arabian Sea, several targeted strikes were carried out by the Houthis. They used armed UAVs and as well as ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, which are provided through Iran. Iran has not just funded the Houthis, it has armed the Houthis as well. So the Houthis, who are leading a civil war in Yemen, right, they have access to advanced weaponry such as armed UAVs, missiles, etc. And using them, they have launched targeted attacks against Israeli American ships. And sometimes they have targeted the ships of other countries as well. A few ships headed towards India were also targeted. So this entire region got destabilized as a result of these attacks, and the shipping route through the Red Sea was affected. It's one of the vital shipping lanes that connects Indian Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean, especially for trade between India and Europe and India and North Africa. This shipping route is absolutely critical. So due to these attacks, many ships, they started diverting away from the Red Sea, and they started taking the longer route by circumnavigating around Africa. right? They would move around West Africa, take a turn at Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, then enter the Indian Ocean through Mozambique Channel. So this increased the travel time, increased the cost of shipping, increased the insurance cost as well, and this had an economic impact, especially with regard to global commodity prices. So to stabilize the region and to counter these attacks by the Houthis, the United States and also European Union, they launched their parallel missions. One is Operation Prosperity Guardian, as mentioned in the first statement, and second is Mission Aspidus by the EU Naval Force Command. Now, what's the difference between the two? See, when the US launched Operation Prosperity Guardian, it was launched under the Combined Maritime Forces, which is a multinational coalition naval force that is headquartered in Bahrain. In Bahrain, you have the CMF, which is a multinational naval force led by the US, and India is also a member of the CMF. India recently became a full-time member of Combined Maritime Forces. It mainly focuses on anti-piracy missions. It secures the shipping lanes from Hormuz Strait to Horn of Africa to Red Sea. But interestingly, India did not take part in Operation Prosperity Guardian. Even the EU naval forces did not take part in the US-led mission because Operation Prosperity Guardian was led under the command of the United States. If it was under the command of Combined Maritime Forces, then India and other European navies wouldn't have had a problem in taking part in Operation Prosperity Guardian. But this would be a US-led naval mission. That is why very few countries like Australia, Canada, then even United Kingdom and Sri Lanka and few other interested states, only they took part in Prosperity Guardian as it was led by the US Navy. Now, if you know, India follows an independent foreign policy. We don't align with such independent unilateral missions, military missions, right? We don't enter any such military alliances. So India carefully stepped out of Operation Prosperity Guardian even though we are a member of CMF, because it would not be under the CMF command based out of Bahrain, it would be under the US Navy command. Even the NATO allies of US like France, Italy, Spain, they had a discomfort in being part of a US-led mission. So the EU naval forces launched their separate mission called Mission Aspidus. So the EU Naval Force Command launched a similar mission in the Red Sea Gulf region to protect commercial shipping and to target the Houthis who are disrupting international shipping. So both the given statements are correct. Your right answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Now let's look at question number 97. Very simple, straightforward question. Sabroom Land Port was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India recently in which of the following states? West Bengal, Punjab, Manipur, Tripura. See, land ports where we have established ICPs or integrated checkposts are very crucial for promoting border trade, especially with the land borders that we share with Pakistan, with Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar and Bangladesh. We are establishing these ICPs or integrated checkposts, which are essentially land port facilities. So such land port facilities, they help in the movement of people, they will facilitate the movement of goods, they will promote cultural ties as well, along with promoting economic and trade relations between the two neighboring countries. So India has been setting up such ICPs with Pakistan, we have few ICPs with Nepal, we have set up ICPs with Myanmar, with Bangladesh, and we have proposed new ICPs along the borders with Bhutan as well. These facilities are established by the Land Port Authorities of India, the Land Port Authority of India, which comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs, because MHA is responsible for border security and border management. Is that clear? So Sabroom Land Port is one of the important trading points between India and Bangladesh, and it is located in the state of Tripura. Option D is your correct answer. Is that clear? Please look at the map here. In Tripura, where Tripura shares this border with Bangladesh, there is an important trading location, a commercial town called Sabroom, which is situated on the banks of the Feni River. So Sabroom is already a trading center, a commercial center. India has plans for establishing a special economic zone. So from here, through this new land port or ICP which has been inaugurated by the PM, we are looking to increase border trade with Bangladesh and also use the Feni river which connects with the Chittagong port over here to provide alternate access to the northeast of India. Northeastern markets can be linked with Bay of Bengal through this route. Through the land port at Sabroom, we can ship the goods through the Feni river, bring it to Chittagong port of Bangladesh and then export it from here, thus giving sea access to the landlocked northeast region. So that is why the topic is very important. Now, I'll give you one small assignment. Can you find out the location of other ICPs that we have with Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar and the other ICPs with Bangladesh and also the proposed land ports with Bhutan? Please find out the locations and mention that in the comments below. Coming to question number 98. Consider the following statements with regard to India-Sri Lanka relations. It's related to the Kachativu controversy which was triggered during the recent elections that are being held in India. Prime Minister Modi and even Foreign Minister Shankar triggered a controversy regarding the Kachativu island by alleging that then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had gifted away Kachativu to Sri Lanka. In this context, there were a lot of articles regarding Kachativu and even another small island called the Vaj Bank. So let's take up the question. Kachativu is an uninhabited island between India and Sri Lanka located in the Pak Strait. This statement is absolutely correct. Please look at the map. This is where Kachativu is located. It's located in the Pak Strait over here, right between Jaffna Peninsula of Sri Lanka, the northern province, and the southeast coast of Tamil Nadu. Between the two, in Pak Strait, you have this small island called Kachativu. In 1974-1976, when we settled the India-Sri Lanka maritime boundary line and signed the maritime boundary agreements, India agreed to give Kachativu to Sri Lanka because there has been contradicting claims over Kachativu since several centuries, even from colonial times. Right? There have been contradicting claims between India and Sri Lanka over the ownership of Kachativu. It has been important for fishermen on both the sides because fishermen used to take rest at this island. They would dock the boats, dry their nets. They would also visit Kachativu for a cultural fest. There is one church, the St. Anthony's Church, and this is a sacred pilgrimage for the Christians, the Christian coastal communities present in Tamil Nadu and also in Jaffna. So economically, culturally, Kachativu has been significant for fishermen on both the sides. But through the maritime boundary agreement, India ceded its claim over Kachativu to Sri Lanka. So this is where the controversy originates. But please remember, Kachativu is not it doesn't have a habitable population because there is no permanent source of drinking water. It was formed due to a volcanic eruption in the 1300s. It's a very small piece of island and it doesn't have any permanent source of fresh water. So it's not suitable for human habitation. So there is no permanent human settlement here. Understood? So along with Kachativu being transferred, the economic rights around the region, the exclusive economic zone, would also get transferred to Sri Lanka. But in return, India got access to Vaj Bank that you can see over here to the south of Tamil Nadu. To the south of Kanyakumari, you have a small islet called Vaj Bank. India got sovereignty over this region and we got exclusive fishing rights because Vaj Bank is one of the richest fishing grounds in the world. Now, if you come back to the question, read the statements given here. You can say that statement number 2 is also correct because Vaj Bank is one of the world's richest fishing grounds. It's blessed with fisheries resources and India has exclusive access to these resources as it is part of our EEZ. Third statement is also correct because Kachativu is not suited for a permanent human settlement as there is no source of drinking water. But however, fourth statement is wrong, it's incorrect. It says India-Sri Lanka Maritime Boundary Agreement of 1976 recognized Vaj Bank as part of India's territorial waters. This is where the statement goes wrong. It's not part of India's territorial waters. Territorial waters extends only up to 12 nautical miles from the baseline. But if you observe the map, you can see Vaj Bank is located at quite a distance from Kanyakumari. So it is part of our exclusive economic zone. It's within India's EEZ, which gives India exclusive rights over the fishing grounds present near Vaj Bank. but it's not within our territorial waters. That's why statement 4 is wrong. So what's the correct answer? Option C. Only 3 given statements are right. Now coming to the last IR question, question number 100. Consider the following about IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. IPEF is intended to advance resilience, sustainability, inclusiveness, economic growth, fairness, competitiveness for member economies. India has decided to join one of the 4 cooperative programs under the clean energy pillar of the US-led IPEF. First, I'll give you the answer and then a quick explanation. Both the given statements are correct, so option C is your right answer, both 1 and 2. So what is IPEF? IPEF is an economic framework proposed by the US and established by the US recently. It is focused on the Indo-Pacific region, as the name itself tells you, but it is not a free trade agreement. Please remember, it's not your regular FTA. Is that clear? Under IPEF, there is no reduction of tariffs proposed as of now, right? The focus is not on reducing the barriers to trade, especially tariff-based barriers. That is not the purpose, so it's not an FTA. It's an economic cooperation framework. So as soon as US proposed the initiative in 2021, right, and by 2022 it was established formally as well, initially 12 countries from Indo-Pacific signed up for the initiative. It included India as well and many Southeast Asian economies like Malaysia, Singapore, etc., and even the close allies of US like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, etc. So total of 13 countries established the IPEF. Then the 14th country also joined, which is Fiji. Fiji was the last country to join IPEF. Kindly remember this fact, there could be a prelims question. So Fiji from the South Pacific also became a member. So under IPEF, there are 4 pillars which have been identified for economic cooperation. Which are the 4 pillars? The trade pillar, supply chains, clean economy and fair economy. So the countries have the choice to either opt for all the pillars or maybe some of the pillars with which they are comfortable with. So India has joined the supply chain initiative to build resilience in global supply chains. We are part of the clean economy initiative to reduce emissions, to focus on decarbonization. So under the clean economy pillar, we have become part of the framework on carbon markets to promote carbon trading. That's what the second statement was asking about. The goal here is to promote sustainable trade, to bring common policies, regulations amongst the member countries, to improve the trade relations amongst the Indo-Pacific nations. India is also part of the fair economy pillar, which focuses on good governance, tackling government corruption, synchronizing the labor laws and other regulations and policies so that there is a level playing field for trade in the Indo-Pacific. But however, India has not joined the trade pillar because India fears that in the future, tariff reduction might be made a part of it, which could adversely affect India's domestic industry. It might lead to cheap imports flooding the Indian market. So we are only an observer to trade pillar. We are not a member of trade pillar, but we have joined the other 3 pillars. And under the clean economy pillar, we have recently joined the carbon market mechanism to promote carbon trading. We are considering other initiatives under clean economy like sustainable electricity, clean electricity. We are also considering the use of clean aviation fuel. These are some proposed pillars under clean economy, which India is also keeping under consideration. Alright, so these were the developments and hence both the statements are correct and option C is your right answer. So on this note, I end my discussion of the IR questions. So don't go anywhere. I'm handing over to Abhishek sir, who will be discussing all the history questions that had appeared in the second mock test. So don't forget, if you like the initiative, do support us through your likes, through your comments, and do subscribe to our channel. Just hang in there for a couple of minutes. Abhishek sir will take over and you get to look at the answers and explanation of all the history questions. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in 1 or 2 minutes.
Welcome back. So now we'll be discussing the questions related to history. So there were 16 questions on the paper with regards to history itself, and out of these 16 questions, most of them were analytical and quite representative of the pattern. Now when we talk about the first mock and the second mock, the first mock had at least 2 to 3 very difficult questions. On the other hand, with regards to this mock, the questions were a tad easier but more conceptual and analytical, and therefore it becomes an even better test of your preparation. So with this, let's look at the questions which we have to cover. The first one is question number 41, and it is related to the Hoysaleshwara temple. Let's look at the statements. It says, the temple is dedicated to both Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. It features a dual shrine itself. It is renowned for its intricate sculpture that depicts scenes from Hindu epics such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Then, the temple was constructed during the reign of Vishnuvardhan. And the fourth statement, which is, the temple complex includes an impressive number of intricate carvings and unique in design in that regard. Now, if you look at the statements itself, they are quite descriptive, but the more the descriptive, the bigger the problem for a candidate. Now here, is it renowned for intricate sculptures? Yes, the whole temple itself was added into the list of the UNESCO because of that, because it is representative of the what we call as Vesara style. Further, was it constructed under Vishnuvardhan? Yes, Vishnuvardhan is actually credited for both the Hoysaleshwara temple and the Chennakeshwara temple under the same what we call as assemblage. Chennakeshwara temple and Hoysaleshwara temple both under Vishnuvardhan, and the temple complex includes intricate carved pillars. They are sometimes also called the glossy pillars of the Vesara style. They are known for their very shiny what we call as texture and contouring on it. This is also correct. However, the first statement is incorrect because it is not a dual shrine. It is dedicated to Lord Shiva and not Lord Vishnu. This is a very big giveaway because whenever you talk about this whole assemblage itself, we never talk about, none of the temples are dual shrines in that sense, and in South India itself and in Central India it would be very rare to have dual shrines in that regard. So here the 3 statements are correct, so only 3. With this, let's move to the next question related to the Portuguese. Advent of Europeans has now become a very important area out of which UPSC is asking a question year on year now. So the first Portuguese fort in India was established at Kochi in 1503. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to establish a sea route to India. The Treaty of Tordesillas divided the newly discovered lands outside Europe between Portugal and Spain. The Estado da India was the administrative structure established by the Portuguese to govern their Indian territories. Which of the statements are correct? Now, the first statement is something which mostly puts the direction of the aspirant in the wrong direction, because it says first, it says fort. If it said first Portuguese establishment or first Portuguese factory, that too temporary, then it would be Calicut. But if it says first Portuguese fort or permanent establishment, then this statement is totally correct. This is a very big dichotomy which exists within advent of Europeans. Half of the sources will say that it is Calicut, some of them will say Kochi, but I am telling you when it is temporary, because what Cabral has created in 1500 was destroyed by the locals when there was a certain skirmish between Zamorians and the Portuguese, because Cabral wanted more monopoly in that sense. This is a correct statement. If it had said first Portuguese establishment, then it would have been a problem. It's saying fort, so Fort Emmanuel was also in the news, so it is the correct statement. Are they the first to find a sea route to India? Yes, Vasco da Gama, totally correct. Then Treaty of Tordesillas. If you don't know about the Treaty of Tordesillas, it is basically an imaginary line which was drawn between the so-called Old World or Europe, the African sector and the Orient in the Atlantic after Columbus and the initial developments of what we call as the discovery of the New World. With the discovery of the New World in 1494, there was a imaginary line drawn in the Atlantic region itself, which basically divided the whole world into 2 parts, one with the Spanish, the other one with the Portuguese, and that is why the Spanish more or less were never interested in the East Indies. They were always interested in the West Indies, and that's why the Portuguese after Brazil never really wanted to expand in the New World itself. And this is also totally correct. Is Estado de India the administrative structure? This Estado itself means state in Portuguese. So it is also correct. Here all 4 statements are correct. And Estado de India was based on the concept of a viceroy or governor sitting in Goa. Goa was the headquarters of all the establishments in the Indian Ocean world. And from Goa, they had captains and governors who were governing different parts of the world at that point of time. So this is a very good question to test your understanding of advent of Europeans and Portuguese. Then we talk about the Ram temple in Ayodhya, a very, very important moment in Indian cultural history itself. And it is talking about the architecture. This is a very realistic question which can come in the examination. So let's read it out. The temple is designated or designed following the Nagara style of architecture, which is characterized by a curvilinear shikhar or spire. The main temple complex is built using granite, reflecting the traditional South Indian type of temple construction. The temple plan includes a sanctum sanctorum, which is Garbhagriha, a Pardakshin Path and a Mandap for the devotees. Which of them are correct? Now, we already know that the first statement is correct, which is Ayodhya Ram temple has been designated as Nagara style. However, it has certain features of the Vesara style also, which would mean the zigzag pattern in which the whole plan has been made, which is very, very reminiscent of what we call as Jagati within the concept of the Vesara style itself. This is the whole plan. If you look at the whole temple, from the point you enter to the whole sanctum sanctorum, the Garbhagriha, it has that very beautiful zigzag design. If you look it through the front, it will look something like this. A very interesting way of making the whole plan itself. This is where it is Nagara style, has a little bit of elements of Vesara. So this is totally correct. Then it says, does it have a sanctum sanctorum? Obviously, if it is Nagara style, it will have a Garbhagriha, it will have a Pardakshin Path, it will have a Mandap, it will have all these elements. This is also correct. Now the second statement is the more trickier one, because it is asking you the material used. And here it says the main temple complex is using granite, which reflects the South Indian type of temple construction. It is not granite, it is actually sandstone, and even in the southern sector in Dravida style, we don't use granite too much. Now when we talk about sandstone, there's also one more peculiarity here, which is the minimal use of iron within the whole temple complex itself, and therefore only 2 statements are correct. There was no use of iron in order to increase the what we call as the life of the temple structure itself, because iron over a period of time would actually start to give way. So sandstone was used with proper carving, and a lot of scientific testing was done so that the sanctity of that sandstone was totally correct. So this is again a very interesting question. We've asked Ayodhya Ram temple in different forms in Conquer Prelims here, and you should be now getting these type of questions correct in the examination. Now, with regards to Angkor Wat in being in the news, the 8th wonder of the world, this question is also testing your understanding of Hinduistic temples outside India. So, with regards to prominent temples which are outside India, which of the statements is correct? Angkor Wat, dedicated to the Trimurti gods of the Hindu pantheon, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Prambanan temple in Java is the world's largest Hindu temple. The Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu has a Shiva Linga with 4 faces, and the Preth Vihar temple in Cambodia is dedicated to the sun. Now here, if you know the basic details of Angkor Wat, you will be able to eliminate these 2. Why? Firstly, Angkor Wat is the largest Hindu complex, and the Prambanan temple, which is in Indonesia, is the second largest. So this is incorrect. The first statement is incorrect because Angkor Wat is not known for the 3 Murtis, which is Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Rather, it is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, and later it is converted to a Buddhist temple complex. So either it is Buddhism or it is Lord Vishnu and not 3 Murtis. So this is also incorrect. Now you have the Preth Vihar temple in Cambodia dedicated to the sun. No, this is totally incorrect. This is Lord Shiva. And the correct statement here is C, that in Kathmandu on the Bagmati river itself, you should remember this Bagmati river itself, we have a very important Shiva temple which is having a very specific type of a linga with 4 sides of what we call as Shiva's engraving or face on it itself. Very important, good question based on the basic ideas of the temples which have been in the news in the past 1 year. With this, let's move to question number 45, Vijayanagara Empire terminology question. This one may be the first one which you would have found a little bit difficult, as it is medieval India, students tend to struggle in. The terminology questions are very common, and UPSC has made it a point to ask at least 2 to 3 questions the past 4 to 5 years. So, term meaning, the Astavana, the Kadachara, Manya, Amra or Amram, portion of land or plot in a village, military department, land revenue department, grant to soldiers. Now, if you have any idea of the administrative structures of the Vijayanagara Empire, you would know that Amram was a grant given to soldiers. That is why the Amar Nayaka system itself, the Nayaks being used as a terminology of soldiers. So, this is totally correct. You would also know something, which is that Manya was a plot or a land grant which was given to the Aigar system or the village intermediaries such as the accountant, the headman or the watchman. These are 3 hereditary positions which used to exist within the Aigar system. The way it used to happen was you had the Raya, then you have the Nayakar or under the Nayankara system, and under the Nayankara system you have the Aigar system. So, under Aigar system, basically the model which is replicated here, which is decentralization of power, is also replicated here in the form of the watchman, the accountant and the headman. And here if they were mostly paid in what are called as Manya grants. So, this is incorrect. Basically, this should be the one which should be actually the right answer for Manya. At the same point of time, Astavana and the Kadachara are the 2 terminologies which you would again not know. Basically, 3 and 1 have been reversed. The portion of land is Manya and the land revenue department is called Astavana. And Kadachara is totally correct, which is it is the military department. So, you have 2 correct. So, correctly matched only 2. 2 of them are incorrect, 2 of them are correct. Please do learn these things. This is not a very difficult question because it should be on your fingertips by now, which is the terminologies of ancient, medieval and specifically Vijayanagara Mughal Empire, very common questions which can be asked. With this, let's move to question number 46. An easy question if your art and culture basics are totally in the right space itself and you revised very, very well. Which of the following statements best describes the significance of martial arts in the history of India? The martial arts in India primarily evolved as a means of self-defense against foreign invaders. The practice of martial arts has its roots in ancient Vedic texts and scriptures, emphasizing spiritual and philosophical developments or aspects. Martial arts are exclusively practiced by the Kshatriyas as a way of warfare. It started after the establishment of Buddhist monasteries and were taught as a form of self-discipline. Now, if you have any idea of where martial arts start, you would automatically be able to eliminate this because it has nothing to do with foreign invasions. At the same point in time, it was not exclusive to the Kshatriyas, it could be practiced by anybody. Then, it has nothing to do with Buddhism. Rather, our martial arts have origin in the Vedic tradition and thereafter it was adopted in different sectors in a different way, and this is the right answer. Others have small incorrect aspects which make them and in the exam context this could be confusing because there are very small deviations in the ideas, but if your concepts are clear you will get this question also correct in the larger idea of your technique of looking at an examination. Okay, this is an interesting question. It is related to art and culture, and this time you can see art and culture has been asked quite a lot because this is an area which comes in the examination, and art and culture, specifically Mughal architecture, is a very important syncretic zone. So, which architectural feature is the most emblematic of the fusion of Rajasthani Gujarati style in or with Mughal architecture or in Mughal architecture? Basically, it's asking you what makes Indo-Islamic architecture Indo-Islamic and what is the most interesting out of these, which is that most important and interesting feature which is emblematic, which is representative of the fusion of Rajasthani Gujarati. See, when we talk about Mughal architecture, there is Persian, what we call as Indian or you can call as native, plus Bengali, Rajasthani, which I use as a term as Indian, Rajasthani, Gujarati, even Deccani elements which were added within the concept of architecture. and therefore it is emblematic of multiple fusions. A fusion of Rajasthani Gujarati, a fusion of Persian and Islamic, or Persian with indigenous designs itself. So the indigenous have multiple aspects. Persian has its own with the Star of David in the Humayun's tomb itself, or the inverted lotus with the Star of David in the Humayun's tomb is very, very interesting aspect of how the Persian influence is also coming in. So the answer to this question, you have Chhatris, Ivans, the Pachisi coat or arabesque. Here the answer is, if you have any idea of architecture, you would automatically mark it as A. See, I have images for you. This is a Mughal Chhatri. And though Akbar was obsessed by it, Mughal Chhatri is a very important intersectionality or fusion of Rajasthani Gujarati styles, because this was very, very common in Rajasthan and Gujarat, with, you can see, inverted lotus, marble, and the architecture is reminiscent of how they used to make what are called as kiosk, domed kiosk as they are called. The domed kiosks like this, you have the concept of Rajasthani Gujarati styles coming through the domed kiosk, but you can see this is a Shah Jahan foliated arch system. So therefore you can see all of these things are coming together. So it's a Shah Jahan foliated arch system plus the concept of the Chhatri, even you have the Chhajja in this. So Chhatri, or what we call as a domed kiosk, is a very good example of fusion. At the other spectrum, the word Ivan, which was used, is very common in Persian designs, very, very common in Central Asia, and it was adopted within the Mughal architecture, and a very good example of this is the Buland Darwaza. If you've seen, basically when you make an arch which has a 3Dness to it, just to show you that, if you make an arch like this, where there is 3Dness, you basically are making an Ivan. Ivan is a very Persian understanding of this whole concept itself. So you should be very, very clear about this also. Then you have arabesque. Arabesque is not something which is specific to the Mughals, but developed during the Delhi Sultanate phase itself. And during Delhi Sultanate phase, arabesque was the way how Delhi Sultans actually removed the issue of human, or what we call as animal representation, not being allowed within Islam itself. So they started to use geometric patterns, and what was more interesting was they started to use Hindu motifs as a way of saying that what is un-Islamic can be used, and we get the beautiful form of the Quranic verses also being used in Kufi, which is called the calligraphic way in which they are put in, and also the aspects related to geometry and the aspects related to Delhi Sultans trying to evade, they wanted to decorate, but they wanted to evade the sanctions under Islam about it. Last but not the least is the Pachisi code. This is a very interesting thing which was there, or which is still there. If you ever go to Fatehpur Sikri, when you go to Fatehpur Sikri, you will find this Pachisi court. It's a courtyard which is basically made like a board game, and this is basically Akbar showing off. Akbar was bored, and therefore he developed a whole courtyard which had these boxes, looks like other board games which we know, but it is called Pachisi because Pachisi is the game which was played on it. Pachisi is the game which is played on it. Some of you may know it. The basic point, it's a board game structure. Fatehpur Sikri, very specific to Fatehpur Sikri, has not been found anywhere else. With this, let's look at question number 48. I hope that was good enough for your understanding and you were able to create a certain visual memory. Civil disobedience movement. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi launched the civil disobedience movement to protest against British salt monopoly. The movement aimed to oppose oppressive salt laws with non-violent resistance and mass civil disobedience. It covered 240 kilometers, the Dandi March, or 240 miles from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi, and he made salt in the sea waters so as to defy the British laws itself. The movement permanently ended in 1931 with the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, which secured some of the concessions from the British. Now, if you know anything about CDM, you will automatically know that these three statements are totally correct, which is CDM, was it about salt? Yes. Was it aimed with mass civil disobedience and non-violent resistance? Yes. Then the concept of 240 miles, the whole spectacle called the Dandi March between Sabarmati Ashram and Dandi. Later it would have to go to Darsana, but he will be arrested at Dandi itself. Totally correct. But again, if you know CDM, you would know civil disobedience movement happens in two phases. phase 1 is between 1930 to 31. Then comes Gandhi-Irwin Pact, and when Gandhi goes to the second roundtable conference, and in the second roundtable conference now the British needed to undercut what we call as Gandhi's influence, and the Minority Pact comes in. When he comes back from London after the deadlock was not broken, he will launch the second phase of the CDM, which is mostly the unsuccessful phase, which is the 32 to 34 one. In 33 he will mostly suspend it, by 34 he will withdraw it, but there are two phases in CDM, not one. So there is this word permanently written here, which makes this incorrect, and only 3 of the statements are correct. So here the word permanently automatically gives us the idea Gandhi-Irwin Pact was part of the truce struggle model. The CDM was not going anywhere, so the truce was taken, in which there was an angle of Gandhi and Bhagat Singh, and you have struggle and struggle. This is a very interesting aspect of the CDM, that this is the only one which started truce in between and then started again. Unlike non-cooperation, which ended with Chauri Chaura, here the truce comes in between the movement itself. Okay. Question number 49, Quit India movement. Again, these movements are very important, that is why we are testing your knowledge about them. The Quit India movement was launched by Mahatma Gandhi in response to the failure of the Cripps mission. The movement was marked by widespread non-violent protests and minimal violent confrontation with the British authorities. The Indian National Congress leadership was arrested within hours of the movement's launch. The Quit India resolution called for immediate withdrawal of the British from India and granted the Viceroy full powers to form an interim government. Now, basically, Quit India has two contexts. One is that the Cripps mission of 1942 will fail, but also is the Japanese onslaught in the Southeast Asian sector, and therefore it is the Japanese onslaught which becomes the immediate reason and the urgency of Gandhi itself. But this statement is correct because Cripps mission also did not fail to give any form of concession as argued by Jawaharlal Nehru. Then, was it marked by no or non-violence and minimal violent confrontation? This is a totally incorrect statement. Quit India movement is the most violent of all movements, because within the hours of the Quit India resolution on 8th August, 9th August every major leader will be arrested, and therefore that will in turn lead to widespread violence and rampaging of the people on the streets. This is incorrect. This is also incorrect because the idea was not about immediate withdrawal and representative government to Indians, not to the Viceroy with the power to form an interim government. So here only 2 statements are correct, 2 are incorrect. So here becomes only 2. Again, easy question, very conceptual, very important to practice these type of questions so that you understand the movements in the larger context. Okay. Statement 1, statement 2 question, new pattern, HSRA, very important, Bhagat Singh. The Hindustan Socialist Republican Army, the HSRA, was founded with the primary aim of establishing a Federal Republic of United States of India by an organized armed revolution. Thereafter, the HSRA was influenced by Marxist ideology and primarily sought to mobilize the peasantry and working class to overthrow the British rule through mass uprising. And if you look at it, these 2 statements are self-contradictory. How? This is a correct statement, which is the HSRA talked about what we call as the United States of India, and it was also influenced by Marxist ideology, the Russian Revolution, the socialistic ideas which were coming in. However, here it says armed revolution, and here it says mass uprising, which are self-contradictory to each other. So here statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is incorrect, because it was not mass uprising, it was individual action, revolutionary action, assassinations, individual heroism as it is called, and therefore this statement becomes incorrect. If you read closely, you will automatically realize the dichotomy between the 2 statements, so that was easy. Further, another statement with regards to statement 1, statement 2 questions. Consider the following statements with reference to Dravida style of temple architecture. You can see art and culture questions have dominated. Please do practice art and culture. It is a giveaway for the larger context of your preparation. The Dravidian temples were primarily constructed using bricks and timber, which allowed for creation of complex and intricate structures. The Dravidian style of temple architecture is characterized by prominent towers called vimanas, which are pyramidal in shape and have a dome-like structure on them, which is nothing but called the shikhara. Here again, if you paid attention in the Ayodhya temple question, you will realize this is a correct statement. This is an incorrect statement. Here it is D. Basically, Dravida temples are not made out of brick and timber. It is either stone or it is sandstone. And it is only on sandstone that you can do intricate carvings. So here again the question is checking your concepts. And I hope you are going to make sure that your concepts are correct, because conceptual questions are at least 90% of the questions. Don't chase the 10% of the questions which are factual. You, out of 16 questions, if you are getting 11 to 12, 13 correct, you have done your job, and don't take a negative in the questions which are extremely difficult or have been put in as a way of testing your ego, which is that should I do these 3 to 4 questions and get a negative and lose marks. Okay, let's look at question number 82. The UCCN was in the news, a very interesting question. Consider the following statements regarding the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, UCCN. Kaggod in Kerala was the first city to be designated as UNESCO City of Literature. Gwalior has been designated as a UNESCO City of Music in the latest list of Creative Cities Network. Srinagar has been recognized under the category of City of Music, Varanasi under the Crafts and Arts in UCCN. Now, if you have any idea about UCCN, you would know that this is totally correct. Gwalior Gharana, the whole music, what we call as Gharana system, originates from Gwalior itself. So, this is a correct statement. First, if you don't read it closely, you will get it incorrect. It says Kaggod in Kerala was the first city to be designated. It does not say first city in India. It says first city. Then this statement is incorrect, because Prague was the first city in the world to be given this City of Literature tag. Is it under City of Literature tag for UNESCO in India? Yes. So, if it had said in India, then correct. But it is not saying India, it is a generic statement, so therefore it becomes incorrect. At the same point in time, this is also incorrect. The whole system has been reversed. Srinagar and Jaipur are for folk and what we call as craft. Mumbai is for the film category, Chennai and Varanasi are for music, Hyderabad was for gastronomy, and now we add Gwalior and Kaggod into it. Gwalior again music category, Kaggod is the first one to get the literature in India category in that regard. So, there are 3 in music category, which is Chennai, Varanasi and Gwalior, and Kaggod literature, Srinagar and Jaipur for craft and folk art, and Hyderabad for food, which is gastronomy. With this, so here you have only one statement correct, question number 82. Question number 83, it's again a descriptive question with regards to Santhal rebellion, important, present and tribal, generally important for the examination. The Santhal rebellion was led by Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu, who mobilized the Santhal community against the oppressive policies of the British East India Company and their agents, the moneylenders and the zamindars. The British response to Santhal rebellion included the use of military force, subsequent establishment of Santhal Pargana, a separate administrative division to pacify the region. If you have any idea of Santhal, both statements are 100% correct, which is, was it about the policies? It was only the Santhal and the what we call as ideas of Sidhu and Kanhu and the Birsa Munda movement, which did not remain within the idea of just being targeting the agents of colonialism. They were targeting colonialism itself. This is a major weakness of peasant and tribal movements in India, which is they were trying to cut the branches of the tree called colonialism and not realizing that it was colonialism which was the problem, it was the British which was the problem and not the agents, which is the zamindar, the money lender, the forest policies. Those are things which are related to colonialism but not the root cause itself. So, both statements totally correct. Okay, question number 84. This is a factual question. I hope you will learn this for the examination, which is there was an International Museum Expo which happened in 2023 and it was where the Mohenjo-daro dancing girl was made as a mascot for this also, and it is asking you which reflects the right announcement which happened in this expo. The expo saw the launch of Museums of India mobile app aimed at providing digital platform for showcasing India's diverse museum collection, an MOU between India and UNESCO for a global heritage museum in Varanasi, Adopt a Heritage program was launched, international panel of experts tried to standardize museum practices in India itself. Here again, if you have no idea, you should know it is A, that the Museum of India mobile app was launched so that all museums are now available digitally in your phone itself. It has nothing to do with UNESCO, nothing with regards to these. These are only standard basic statements given to redirect your orientation in the wrong direction. Okay. Question number 85. Again, read closely and you will realize that these questions are actually checking very small but interesting facts also. The immediate cause for the revolt of 1807 was the introduction of the Enfield rifle cartridges. The revolt began with the mutiny in the 3rd Bengal Light Cavalry in Meerut on 10th May 1857. The rebellion witnessed participation of Indian rulers, particularly from the princely states of Rajasthan and Gujarat. It failed due to lack of unified leadership and coordination. Now, first and foremost, let's get the facts correct. Was it May 10th? Yes. Was it 3rd Bengal Light Infantry in Meerut? Yes. The Barrackpore incident is in March, and this is the point from where the revolt actually starts. Correct. Was one of the immediate causes, not the long term but immediate causes, the Enfield rifle? Yes. And did it fail because of no unified leadership? Yes. However, this statement is incorrect because it has the geography incorrect. The rebellion did not have the participation of princely states of Rajasthan and Gujarat, rather they were more loyal to the British. It is more towards Awadh and Bengal and central provinces which is more pronounced than the Rajasthan and Gujarat sector. So do understand this point. This is the incorrect. You have 3 statements correct, but the idea is very simple. You have to read closely because these type of small changes can make the question or break the question. Okay. Question number 86, the last question, Vycom Satyagraha, centenary, very, very important. So, again, read closely. When it is text heavy, you have to keep your concentration high. Vycom Satyagraha launched in 1924. This is the first thing we need to check when we are looking at this question. In Travancore, we have to check the geography. Against the practice of untouchability and the right to lower caste Hindus to use public roads around Vycom temple. The Vycom Satyagraha was primarily led by Mahatma Gandhi and the INC with active support from Periyar. The Vycom Satyagraha marked a shift in the Indian national movement, bringing caste discrimination to the forefront, emphasizing the importance of social reform along with political independence. Both of the statements are correct. Now, very simply, first let's check the dates. This is correct, Travancore is correct, then this is a correct statement, totally. Then, is it a shift? Does it imply a shift with depressed class reform becoming a part of the larger concept of Gandhian movement, non-cooperation, civil disobedience? Yes. However, the primary leadership was not Mahatma Gandhi. He had supported this movement. It is T.K. Madhavan. If you have any idea, K. Kalrappan, T.K. Madhavan, they were the ones who were the pioneers of the Vycom Satyagraha, the most successful temple entry movement in India itself. This is incorrect. So, the answer here is only 2. So, with this, I'll hand it over to Shyam sir. He'll be taking economics and government scheme questions. Out of the 16 questions of history, I hope you were able to get at least 13 correct because the question paper was a little bit easier than before. And I hope that you are making sure that art and culture and modern India is your stronghold because at least 10 questions from this area will come for sure in the examination. Thank you, and I hand it over to Shyam sir.
Hello and good afternoon. Let's start discussion on the questions which have been taken up from Indian economy as well as government schemes. Question number 21. Consider the following statements. Increase in real gross domestic product, upward revision in labor wages, increase in trade deficit. How many of the above are the macroeconomic outcomes of demand pull inflation? Whenever you talk about inflation, there is a demand pull inflation which will be caused because of rise in the aggregate demand in the market. There can also be a cost push inflation which will be caused because of upward revision or increased prices of the commodities because of the supply side factors. Now the question says, how many of the above are the outcomes of demand pull inflation? If there is a demand pull inflation, what will be the outcome? How many of them are correct? First one, increase in real gross domestic product. Now whenever you talk about GDP, GDP can be measured under two heads, nominal and real. Now whenever you talk about inflation, if there is inflation, obviously nominal GDP will rise up. I hope you understand. If the market price of the marker goes up from 10 rupees to 12 rupees, nominal GDP will automatically increase. But the question is not about nominal GDP, it is about real GDP. Will the real GDP in the economy increase with demand pull inflation? Statement 1 is correct. With the higher demand, certain production will rise up, and because of the higher production, the real GDP in the economy will also increase. First one is correct. Upward revision of labor wages. If there is a demand pull inflation, if the market prices of the commodities are increasing, some of this particular rise in the market prices will lead to revision in the wages. If I am a worker, imagine you are the owner of the company, I am the worker, I am reporting to you. Now if there is a higher market price for the goods and services, automatically I will come to you, I will demand higher wages now. Whatever the reason is, I will demand higher wages. Now there will be an upward revision in the wages of the workers. Second statement is correct. Third one, increase in the trade deficit. If there is a higher demand, automatically the demand for the imports will also start increasing. So that will automatically lead to higher imports being done in the domestic market, and that will widen up the trade deficit. And moreover, if you look at this, if the market prices of the commodities will start increasing, automatically the exports will become less competitive. That will also lead to widening of the trade deficit. So third statement is also correct. Question number 21, right option for question number 21 will be option C. All the three are correct. Question number 22, if the Reserve Bank of India increases the repo rate, then interest rate on bank loans decreases. Listen to me very carefully. Repo rate is the policy rate. It's a policy rate. If RBI increases the policy rate, it simply means now when RBI will provide loan to a bank, it will charge a higher rate of interest. And if RBI will charge a higher rate of interest on the loans given to the banks, banks will also charge a higher rate of interest on the loans given to borrowers. This will basically ensure that the money supply, the credit supply in the market will start coming downwards. Statement 1, interest rate on the bank loans decreases. No, it will rather start increasing. Statement 2, borrowing by commercial banks from RBI becomes cheaper. Absolutely wrong. It becomes costlier now, not cheaper. Third one, money supply in the economy gets reduced. Of course, yes. Money supply in the economy will automatically get reduced. Fourth one, slightly technical, listen to me carefully. Banks can earn higher interest on their excess funds deposited with RBI. Many will simply say, so statement D is also wrong. I will say statement D up to a certain extent is correct. How so? Slightly technical, please listen to me carefully. In case of India, repo rate is the most important policy rate. Correct? It's the most important policy rate. And what about the other rates, such as reverse repo rate, such as base rate? All these rates are connected to repo rate. All these are connected to repo rate. If repo rate increases, what do you think will happen to reverse repo rate? the reverse repo rate automatically will also start increasing because it is linked or it is connected to the repo rate. And when the reverse repo rate increases, the banks will keep the deposits with RBI and earn higher interest on it. But please understand, out of these two statements, I will still choose option C for a very simple reason. Generally, that is the use of a repo rate. That is the reason why repo rate is actually used in the economy to either increase or reduce money supply. So, right option for question number 22 will be option C. Money supply in the economy will get reduced. Let me go to question number 23 now. Question number 23. Consider the following statements regarding the scope of activities of payment banks. Payment banks are type of differentiated banks, niche banks. In case of India, Reserve Bank of India promotes two types of differentiated banking systems. One is a small finance bank and the second one is a payment bank. And very recently, the payment banking sector as well as even the small finance banks are there in the newspapers, are there in the current affairs. Please be very careful. The payment banks were there in the discussion because what happened with the Paytm payment bank? Why are the small finance banks there in the current affairs? The SFBs are there in the current affairs because many of the SFBs have approached Reserve Bank of India and they have sought a path to convert into universal banks. And RBI very recently has announced what are the conditions, what are the parameters that RBI will consider if an SFB has to get a license for universal banking. So, both of these differentiated banks are there in the current affairs, be aware of it. Now, let us look at the statements here. Question number 23, payment banks can issue credit cards. Absolutely no. Payment banks individually, I hope you understand this, payment banks on their own, can they issue credit cards? No. Payment banks are not allowed to give loans. But please be very careful. Can a payment bank enter into an agreement with another bank, let's say universal bank, can they issue a credit card? Can they issue loans? Answer is yes. First statement wrong. Payment banks cannot accept NRI deposits. Payment banks cannot accept NRI deposit. This statement is also wrong. Why? Earlier it was not allowed, now it is allowed. Payment banks are allowed to collect NRI deposits. Third one, payment banks are not allowed to give loans to the general public. Extension of the first statement itself, but the statement 3 is correct now. So, right option for question number 23, how many of the above given statements are correct? Right option will be option A, only one of the statements are true. Question number 24 now. Consider the following statements regarding Price Stabilization Fund, PSF, Price Stabilization Fund. The reason why PSF is there in the current affairs is very simple. In the last 1 year, many commodities, Government of India has kept these commodities under PSF and has started procuring or providing loans for procurement. For example, rice, wheat earlier were not under the PSF, now have been brought under PSF. The tomato as a commodity, the prices of tomato was very high in the market. Tomato has been brought under the PSF. So, based on that, a question has been asked here. It was created under the Department of Economic Affairs to regulate the price volatility of important agri-horticulture commodities. Statement 1 is wrong. Statement 1 is wrong. Why? It was not created under Department of Economic Affairs. It was created under Ministry of Consumer Affairs. So, first statement is wrong. Second one, it is utilized for granting interest-free advances of working capital to central agencies to undertake market intervention operations. This is the basic idea for PSF. That is, under PSF, funds are kept. These funds are issued without charging interest. These funds are issued for working capital purposes for various agencies. And what is the use of it? They will take these funds, purchase commodities from the market. When the prices are going down, they will purchase commodities so that when they will purchase, the supply will be controlled, prices will also be stabilized. And when the supply will go down, prices will start rising up in the market. These agencies are expected to introduce the commodities so as to stabilize the market price. So, second statement absolutely correct. Third one, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, NABARD, maintains the PSF as a central corpus fund. So, factual statement. Third statement is wrong. Why? This fund is not kept with NABARD, it is in fact kept with Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, SFAC. So, third statement wrong, first statement wrong, 24 right option will be option A, only one is correct. Let me go to question number 25 now. Consider the following statements regarding the remission of duties and taxes on exported product, RODTEP scheme. Now, before looking at the points, what is an RODTEP scheme? What is the meaning of it? Earlier, before RODTEP was implemented, a reform such as GST has been implemented. Under GST, many indirect taxes have been subsumed. But even after that, there are certain taxes which are paid by the manufacturers. Certain expenditures, direct costs which are incurred by the manufacturers, either at the state level, central level, or even at the local level. And these expenses, such as indirect taxes, there is no remission provided. There is no returns provided, or these taxes are not refunded to a manufacturer. And if I am a manufacturer, I am manufacturing this marker to export it, and if I pay certain taxes which are not returned back to me, which are not given back to me, automatically I will include those taxes in the market price of the export. That will basically increase the market price, reduce export competitiveness. And this is not going to lead to zero rating of exports. And when you allow the concept of a zero rating of exports, essentially out of the market price of the product, none of the market price is because of the taxes. There is no component of taxes in the market price of the product. That essentially is called as zero rating of exports. In order to promote zero rating of exports, Government of India introduced the concept of RODTEP. Before RODTEP, there was MEIS, there was SEIS, there was a concern regarding these schemes. Government of India was dragged to WTO's dispute settlement body. USA argued that when Government of India can show that their per capita national income is more than $1,000, then according to the agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures, India is not supposed to provide export linked subsidies. But in the form of MEIS, Government of India was providing export linked subsidy. Hence, Government of India has discontinued MEIS, SEIS, and it has introduced RODTEP. Now, let us look at the statements. It was launched by the Ministry of Finance and is currently administered by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, whenever you come across these kinds of initiatives, please remember, generally these initiatives will be launched by the respective ministry, but will be administered by Ministry of Finance. So, first statement wrong, opposite. RODTEP replaced the Merchandise Exports Incentive Scheme in response to US challenging India's export subsidies under MEIS at WTO. Absolutely correct. The scheme provides for a mechanism for reimbursement of taxes, duties and levies which are incurred by the exporters. Yes, either at the center, state or even at the local level. If you have incurred certain expenditure and if you have not received it back, right, they will simply provide you the remission of it. Fourth one, the rebate is issued in the form of physical transferable scrips. What do you mean by scrip? Scrip is like a certificate. Scrip is nothing but a certificate which will have certain value. Under MEIS and SEIS, scrips were issued, physical hard copy scrips are issued. You can use these scripts to pay for import duties. But under RODTEP, physical scripts are not issued, digital versions, digital copies of the scripts are issued. So, fourth statement is wrong. 25, right option will be option B, only 2 of the statements are correct. Question number 26, consider the following components: MSP excluding the bonus, procurement incidentals, cost of distribution. How many of the above components constitutes economic cost of food grains? What do you understand by economic cost of food grains? The formula is very simple. economic cost of food grains is equal to procurement cost. PC is procurement cost. Procurement cost plus procurement incidentals plus distribution cost. PC plus PI plus DC. Procurement cost essentially means when government will procure, it will pay MSP. And if government of India pays a certain amount of bonus, that will also be included there. So the procurement cost mainly MSP, and if any bonus is paid. Now some of you will say, sir, bonus is paid by the state government. My dear, if the bonus is paid by the state government, it is not economic cost of food grains for the central government. Second one, PI, procurement incidental. Once you pay MSP, you have got food grains, but you need to transport the food grains. You need to bag the food grains, package the food grains. You need to hire labor to do all of this, load the food grains into the trucks, etc. These are called as procurement incidental. And once the food grain is, let's say, loaded onto the truck will go to the warehouse, cost of warehousing, cost of distribution further again, all of that will be considered, right, under the concept of distribution cost. So minimum support price excluding the bonus, assuming the bonus is paid by the states now. So first one, correct. Procurement incidentals, yes. Cost of distribution, yes. All the three are true. Right option is option C, all the three are correct. Okay, question number 26, option C is the right one. Question number 27, consider the following statements regarding tax elasticity. Tax elasticity. Now, what is this concept of a tax elasticity? Please understand this. Imagine you purchase this particular product right now in the market and government will impose a tax of 10%. Assuming the price, that is the selling price was 100, 10% on 100 rupees, government would be collecting a revenue, a tax receipt of 10 rupee. If government will increase the tax rate from 10% to 12% on the selling price of 100 rupee, now government would be collecting a tax receipt of 12 rupees. So now can I simply say, with the change in the tax rate, the amount of taxes collected is also changing. The measurement of this is called as tax elasticity. When the tax receipts change, with the change in the tax rate, it is called as tax elasticity. Now look at the statements. Tax elasticity measures the degree to which the increase in the tax rate causes the change in the tax base. Yes. Second statement, tax elasticity is observed more in short run, especially when the taxes are raised for a quick revenue generated by the government. And by the way, you are supposed to find out which of the statements are incorrect. Now look at the second statement. Tax elasticity is observed more in the short run. No. Tax elasticity is observed more in the long run, not in the short run. Why? Please understand, between short and long term, that is the concept here, between short and long term. Generally what happens is, imagine the tax rate is increased by the government. Imagine the tax rate is increased by the government, which essentially means market prices will go up. And when the market prices will go up, what do you think will happen to the demand for the commodities, assuming you know what is the law of demand? Law of demand states that price and demand are inversely related. Both will move in opposite direction. If the price of the commodity moves upwards, the quantity demanded will move downwards. It has to move in opposite direction. Again, don't look at exceptions. There are exceptions. Don't worry. Normally, this is what happens. But please understand this. If the price of the commodity goes upwards because of the taxes imposed by the government, suddenly the demand will not change. Suddenly the demand will not change in the market. Why? People such as you, such as me, consumers in the market will take time to understand the impact of the rise in the prices. That's the reason in short run, things do not change. In the long term, things will change. That is, in the long term, I'll realize that I cannot sustain the same consumption within the same amount. I cannot sustain the same consumption with higher market prices. So I will start changing the demand now. I'll start changing the quantity demanded. All of you okay? So the statement tax elasticity is observed more in the short run. No, it is observed more in the long run, not in the short run. So second statement is wrong. You are supposed to find which of the statements are not correct. So question number 27, the option will be option B, only 2. Second statement is incorrect. Question number 28, consider the following statements. International economic transactions are called as autonomous when transactions are made. Now, whenever you talk about balance of payment, BOP, the transactions which are conducted in the BOP will be divided into 2 types. One is called as autonomous transaction, and the second one is called as accommodating transaction. Autonomous and accommodating transaction. What is the basic difference between autonomous and accommodating transaction? Whenever you talk about accommodating transaction, these are conducted in order to address the issue in the BOP. If there is a deficit in the BOP, if there is an imbalance in the BOP, to address the issue of imbalance, such transactions are conducted. For example, let's say RBI using the forex reserves to bridge the deficit in the BOP. So, don't you think if RBI will use forex reserves in order to address the issue, can I call this as accommodating transaction? But apart from accommodating, there are many other transactions which are done in search of profit, in search of higher income. These are referred to as autonomous transactions. For example, imports and exports. Don't you think the imports and exports which are done, these are done in order to earn profits? These are not done in order to bridge the deficit. These are done independent of the situation in the BOP. Now, please look at the examples given here. Which of the following are autonomous transactions? To bridge the gap in the balance of payment, accommodating. To earn profit, autonomous. When they are independent of the state of BOP, when they are independent of the state of BOP, when these transactions are independent of the state of the BOP, yes, these are also referred to as, right, the autonomous transactions. Okay, so 2 is correct, 3 is correct. Right option for question number 28 will be option B here. Right option will be option B, independent of the status of BOP. Done. Question number 29 now. With reference to Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program, consider the following statements. It is a central sector scheme. Of course, yes. The PMEGP has been launched by the government in order to basically promote MSMEs. Right. So, understand this. It is a central sector scheme. Yes. It has been launched by Ministry of MSME, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. So, question number 29, first statement is true. It is implemented by Khadi and Village Industries Commission. Yes. Sir, what is the meaning of this? What is the scheme all about? We want to promote, I hope you understand, we want to promote the micro, small and medium enterprises, especially the ones which, right, wherein we want to provide credit linked subsidy. We want to provide credit linked subsidy up to certain limit, the projects are covered and certain percentage is provided in the form of a credit linked subsidy of the project cost. That is basically the idea of a Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program. So, first statement is true. It is implemented by KVIC, Khadi Village Industries Commission. Yes. Assistance under the scheme is provided for both greenfield and brownfield projects. No. It is not provided for both of them. It is only provided for one of them. Okay. So, 1 is correct, 2 is correct, third one is wrong. Right option for question number 29 will be option B. Only 2 of them are correct. Let me go to question number 30 now. Consider the following statements regarding special economic zone. Yes, easy. Special economic zone. What is a special economic zone? Imagine this is a particular region and in this region I will identify one area. I will notify this area as a special economic zone. I will call this as a special economic zone. The rest of the region is called as a domestic tariff area, DTA, domestic tariff area. And what is the use of this kind of a classification? Whatever is produced within the SEZ, we want to export it. We want to send it across the border to other countries. Export promotion is the major objective of SEZ policy. And in order to promote exports from this region, whenever it is a question of, let's say, taxation, certain policies of the government, let's say example taxation, we will not impose any tariffs, any taxes on the imports done by SEZ. whatever imports they are doing, we will allow it to be imported without any duties. Reason being, I want SEZ to import it at lower cost without any taxes, manufacture and export it, which will increase the export competitiveness of the product. But please remember this, if the SEZ will try to sell the product within the domestic tariff area, I will treat it like an import. Whatever benefit was given, the benefit will be withdrawn. That is basically the model of special economic zones. Now, SEZs are deemed to be foreign territory and allow duty-free imports of goods and services? Yes. In terms of taxation, we will treat as if it is not part of India. Right? We will treat it as if it is a foreign territory, do not impose any taxes. So, first statement is correct. Second statement, the Department of Economic Affairs of the Minister of Finance is responsible for the policy of SEZ. It is Commerce Department, not Minister of Economic Affairs. Second statement is wrong. No northeastern state in India has an operational SEZ. Operational SEZ. Sir, what do you mean by operational? The process is simple here. First, the government of India will give approval. They will notify a region as SEZ. They will give approval. This is called as notified SEZ. Once the SEZ is developed and the SEZ will start, the companies will start using SEZ region. There will be manufacturing, there will be service sector companies located in that. It is called as operational SEZ. So, there are more than 400 notified SEZ in India, and some of them have been notified from the northeastern region, somewhere around 5. None of these SEZs are operational as of now. None of them are operational. So, no northeastern states in India have operational SEZs. Question number 30, at third statement is true. Right option will be option B. Only 2 of the above statements are correct. Okay. Now, question number 51. In the context of economy, the term factoring refers to which of the following? What do you understand by the term factoring? Please understand. Imagine I am a company, I am a micro enterprise, let us say. I will sell certain raw material to you. Now, you have promised that you will make a payment to me after a certain number of days, and according to MSME Act, within 45 days. But I want money, let us say, after 20 days, after 25 days. What should I do? I have got your bill where you have promised that you will make a payment, but you are not going to make a payment right now. I can use one process to get the money from the market. To address the liquidity concern, I can use one process. It is called as a factoring process, wherein I will sell the bills receivable. I repeat, I will sell this particular bill. This is called as a receivable for me. I will sell the bills receivable to somebody else in the market, a factor or a financial institution. They will pay money to me. This process is called as a factoring business. This is referred to as a factoring business. Okay. So, question number 51, look at the statement B. It is a transaction where an entity sells its receivable to a third party for immediate funds. For immediate release of the funds, the company will sell it to somebody else, let us say a third party, they will give the funds. Now, some of you will ask me, sir, why will a third party purchase it? The third party will impose certain charges and collect. Third party will basically submit the bill to you upon the end of 45 days and collect money from you. So, right option for question number 51 will be statement B. That is the right one. Question number 52 now. Consider the following. Foreign exchange, loan to commercial banks. Basically, you will have to find out which of the following are liabilities for RBI. Liabilities. Understand this. You will come across 2 terms, assets and liabilities. Assets and liabilities. What is the basic idea? If something will get returns to you, if something will earn money for you, we will refer to this as assets. And if something will lead to outflow of money, it will lead to payment from your side, we will call this as liabilities. For example, you go to a bank, keep a fixed deposit with the bank. Can I simply say fixed deposit will earn money for you? So, for you, fixed deposit will be an asset. On the other side, you go to the same bank, apply for a loan, take a loan. You will have to pay interest, you will have to pay principal. It is going to lead to outflow of money for you. For you, the loan will be a liability. So in this case, we have given 4 options. You are supposed to find how many of them are assets for a bank or liabilities for RBI. Foreign exchange. If RBI is keeping certain amount of foreign exchange, money in essence, can I simply call it as an asset? Correct? I simply refer to this as asset. RBI will provide a loan to a commercial bank. RBI will earn rate of interest on this. So that is a asset. So it is not a liability, it is an asset. Currency held by the public. When RBI will issue currency, in return it will take something. Is it okay? For example, if you are RBI, you are going to give me 100 rupees. How? On what basis? You will give 100 rupee, let's say I will give you a government security. So can I simply say, because you have taken government security today, right, you will have to return the government security and right, the currency that you have issued become your liability. Right, so basically the currency held by the public, any currency that is issued by RBI becomes a liability of RBI. Deposits of commercial banks with Reserve Bank of India. These banks will keep deposit today, they will withdraw the money later, that is also liability. So 3 and 4 are the liabilities. Question number 52, right option will be option B, only 2 are correct. Question number 75 now. Which of the following correctly defines the term GDP deflator? GDP deflator. What do you mean by GDP deflator? The GDP deflator is a ratio of nominal GDP divided by real GDP. It's a ratio of nominal GDP divided by real GDP. But what does it indicate? Nominal GDP is calculated using current year market prices, and the real GDP is calculated using base year market price. And when you calculate GDP for the same year using 2 different prices, one for base year, one for current year, can I simply say the representation or the comparison will tell you by how much percentage the price levels have increased? Correct? I hope you understand this. If you are taking a base year price, if you are taking current year price to calculate GDP, the difference is basically telling you, or the ratio will tell you by how much percentage the price levels have increased because of inflation, by how much percentage GDP has increased because of inflation. That is basically the GDP deflator. Look at right statement A. GDP deflator measures the price changes of all the goods and services produced within a country's border, excluding imported items. No, right, you will have to account for imports as well as exports. That is how you get the value of GDP. GDP deflator is the ratio of real GDP to nominal GDP. Wrong, exactly opposite. GDP deflator reflects overall price changes in an economy and is derived by comparing nominal to real GDP. Right option for question number 75 will be option C. Let me go to question number 76 now. Following statements, look at them. If a country has a free capital flows and an independent monetary policy, it can increase its ability to maintain a fixed exchange rate. Now please understand this. There is a theory called as impossible trinity. Impossible trinity. What does the impossible trinity say? It basically says if a central banker of a country has 3 objectives. 1, free flow of capital, independent monetary policy and a fixed exchange rate, at any point of time you cannot achieve all the 3. You cannot achieve all the 3. That's the reason this is called as impossible trinity. You can achieve only 2 out of them. You cannot achieve all the 3. Sir, how is that possible? My dear, if you have an independent monetary policy, if you change repo rates, that will lead to change in the interest rates. And if there is a change in the interest rates, don't you think it will either attract or will force the investments to either come or go out of India? If interest rates in India will go up, you automatically expect lot of investments to come into India. So how will you be able to maintain a fixed exchange rate at that point of time? So all the 3 are not possible. You can achieve only 2 of them. 3 are not possible. Hence this is called as impossible trinity. Done. So statement 1, can I simply say this is wrong? You cannot maintain a fixed exchange rate when you have an independent monetary policy and also you allow free flow of the capital. It's not possible. Second one, if the central bank raises interest rates, it will make the country's currency more attractive to investors. This will lead to an inflow of capital and an upward pressure in the exchange rate. It's a factual statement. That is, if interest rates in India will go up, foreign investors will be bringing in dollars into India. They will sell dollars, they will purchase rupees. Rupee value will start moving upwards. Rupee will start getting appreciated. That is upward pressure on the exchange rate. Statement 2 is correct. Statement 1 is wrong. Right option for question number 76 will be option D. Statement 2 is correct, but statement 1 is incorrect. Question number 77 now. Consider the following regarding small finance banks. They can accept deposits and provide credit. Absolutely true. Just like a normal bank, an SFB can accept deposit from the people, can provide loans as well. But please be aware of this. In case of small finance bank, the PSL target that has been kept by Reserve Bank of India is 75%. 75% of the credit issued has to go to the PSL sectors. And point number 2, at least 50% of the loans issued should be of value up to 25 lakh. First statement is correct. They cannot act as authorized dealers in the foreign exchange market. Statement 2 is wrong. RBI has allowed them. What do you mean by authorized dealers? Basically the entities which are allowed to permit exchanges of currencies. So second statement is wrong. Third one, they are not required to maintain capital adequacy ratios. This is also wrong. You are a bank. You will have to maintain capital adequacy ratio. For example, you will have to maintain CAR of 15% if you are a SFB. Foreign shareholding in small finance banks is not allowed. This is also wrong. Up to 74% of foreign investment is allowed. So only the first statement is correct. Right option for question number 77 will be option A. Only one is correct. Okay, just a second. You will have to find which are not correct. Which are not correct. So 3 statements are wrong. So A will not be correct. Right option will be 3 statements are incorrect. Right option will be option C here. Okay. Question number 78. It's a graphical representation of the relationship between possible rates of taxation and resulting levels of government revenue. It also suggests that revenues decline beyond a tax rate. This is best represented by, right? Please understand the right option for this is option B, Laffer curve. Now, what is this concept of a Laffer curve? Laffer curve is represented in an inverted U manner. Inverted U curve is a Laffer curve. The basic argument is along x axis I will represent the tax rate and along y axis I will represent the receipts collected by the government. The basic argument is if government will increase the tax rate, the tax revenue collected by the government will increase. But this will be observed only up to certain tax rate, and this is called as a optimal tax rate. You will observe this happening only up to certain tax rate. If government will increase the tax rate beyond this, tax revenues will not increase, rather it will start decreasing. This is basically the concept given by an economist, Mr. Arthur Laffer. Again, there are drawbacks to this particular model, but argument is simple. Beyond a certain tax rate, that is optimal tax rate, the argument is the taxpayers will feel the burden of taxation. Rather than working more, they will start taking more of leisure, more of a rest. Hence, the working will come down, the earnings will come down, tax collections of the government will also effectively come down. So that is the reason Laffer curve is an inverted U curve, inverted U curve. Question number 79. Consider the following about inflation targeting. Inflation targeting is a fiscal policy framework. Underline the term fiscal policy framework, where central bank sets a target wrong on so many levels. Statement is wrong on multiple levels. Is it right? Target set up by Reserve Bank of India? Absolutely no. RBI doesn't fix a target. Central government fixes the target, but with consultation of Reserve Bank of India. So first statement wrong. Reserve Bank of India is mandated to maintain a rate of inflation of 4% with a 2 percentage point deviation. In essence, the maximum rate of inflation shall be 6%. The lower rate of inflation shall be 2%. The ceiling and the floor. So these are the extreme rates. Second statement is correct. RBI is allowed to do that. Cost push inflation may cause a temporary blip. Temporary blip means what? Temporary rise in inflation rate. Why do we say that? Imagine the steel prices will go up because of, let's say, something that is happening in the Middle East. Crude oil prices will go up because of something happening in the Middle East. This event that has led to a rise in the prices, which is causing cost push inflation in India, is not a permanent event. It is a temporary rise, and that is the reason this will cause a temporary rise in the inflation. Once the events will become normal, then the impact on inflation will also be reduced. So, third one correct. So, question number 79, right option will be option B. Two of the statements are correct. Question number 80. Consider the following statements about incremental capital output ratio, ICAR. ICOR, ICAR. What is this idea for ICAR? Please understand this. The concept of ICAR has been derived from one more concept called as capital output ratio, COR, capital output ratio. Capital output ratio essentially means, look at the name, how much capital should you invest to get 1 unit of output? How much capital should you invest to get 1 unit of output is called as a capital output ratio. But the problem with the capital output ratio is that I will take how much investment has been done in the economy for last 10 years and I will calculate how much capital is required for getting 1 unit of output. But that will not give me the information regarding how efficient was the investment done in the last year. How efficient was the investment done in the last 2 years, because under capital output ratio, historical investments will be covered. Right. So, that is the reason we have a better version, incremental capital output ratio. And what do you mean by incremental capital output ratio? To increase the output by 1 unit, you are producing. To increase the output by 1 unit, how much additional capital should you invest? That is called as ICAR, incremental capital output ratio. Done? So, statement 1, a lower ICAR, right? Statement 1, a lower ICAR means lower ICAR means that a country can achieve higher economic growth with the same level of investment. Of course, yes. If you are going to invest a certain amount of money, if there is a lower ICAR, it simply means to increase the output by 1 unit, you need to spend very less amount of capital. So, with the lower ICAR, imagine there are two situations. In one situation, the ICAR for one example is, let's say 2 rupees or let's say 5 rupees per unit. And in another example, for ICAR, it is, let's say 4 rupees per unit. Right. So, investment of 5 rupee capital per unit, increase in 1 unit. Investment by 4 rupees, increase the capital by 4 rupees to get 1 unit. If I am investing 20 rupees in capital, can I simply say in the second example, I will be able to get more output because of lower ICAR. That is exactly the statement 1. A lower ICAR means that more of the investment is being used for producing productive capital and less is being used for production of non-productive capital. That is also true. If you are spending money and there is a lower ICAR, I am using most of this money to produce capital which is required, capital which is needed for the growth in the economy. Less of the investment is going for non-productive capital. Second statement is also true. In fact, if you look at it, both the statements are related. Statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation for statement 1, because I am reducing the ICAR, I am using more of the ICAR, that is investment in capital, to increase productivity. That is also statement 1. Okay, so right option for this particular question number 80 will be option A. Let me go to question number 94. Consider the following process of funds. How many of the above are the sources of funds for Panchayat Raj institutions in India? PRI. Under the Constitution of India, there is an article 243. Under that, what are the sources of the funding for PRI are discussed. The PRI can get the sources of funds from different areas. There can be different sources which can be used, and the question is basically on that. Purely factual. Grants from the union government based on the recommendations of the Central Finance Commission? Of course, yes. If you look at the recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission, certain grants have been recommended to the local government. First one is correct. Devolution from the state governments based on the recommendations of SFC, that is also correct. loans or grants from the union government. Please understand, in case of the Panchayat Raj institutions, PRIs, they do not get the loans or grants from the union government directly like this. They do not get the loans from the union government. It has to be from the state government. It has to be from the state government. Third one is wrong. Program specific allocation under centrally sponsored schemes and additional central assistance. That is also one source of funding for PRI. In fact, in addition to all of these, the PRIs are also empowered, are given the power to impose certain amount of taxes and raise the receipts from these particular taxes to use it as a source of money. So, these are the statements which are correct. 1, 2 and 4. Right option for question number 94 will be option C. Only 3 of them are correct. So, these are the various questions. The next discussion on questions which have appeared in geography will be taken up by Mukesh sir. Thank you.
Hello, a very warm good afternoon to all of you and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to the discussion for the questions which have appeared in the prelims mock test from the portion of geography and environment. Now here in most of the questions, as was in the case of the previous mock test also, you will find that the questions are a bit conceptual in nature. So that being said, if you would have applied yourself, the question difficulty level can easily be put under the moderate category. But before coming to a conclusion, let us start discussion of these questions. Overall, I hope that these discussions are turning out to be productive for you in order to understand the concepts and eliminate the errors that you have committed. If you are liking this initiative of ours, then please don't forget to click on the like, share and subscribe to the channel. And the comments regarding this initiative, please do put up the comments in the comment section and let us know about what you think for the content. Now, starting with the first question of geography, which appeared there. So, it was the first question. Consider the following statements with reference to climatic characteristics of a region. So, basically in these 5 different statements, you basically have the climatic characteristics described, and in the answer you have to find out which climatic condition is being talked about. So, it has got cold, dry winters and warm and wet summers. So, that means there is a significant disparity in between the winter and the summer season. So, automatically with this particular aspect, you can eliminate equatorial type of climate, because equatorial type of climate has got a consistent temperature range throughout the year. So, the annual variation in temperature for the equatorial climate is very minimal. But with this information from the first statement, you can also be able to eliminate Mediterranean type of climate. Because when we talk about Mediterranean climate, what do we have? We have dry summers and rainy winters, because rainfall occurs in the Mediterranean region in the winter months. Why? Because of the shifting of the pressure belt. When you have the southward migration of the pressure belts in the winter months, so that is where in the region of Mediterranean the westerlies pick up and they bring and carry the moisture from the Mediterranean and cause copious amount of rainfall in the southern part of the European landmass. So here automatically with the first statement we are able to come to the two particular options. Lumbering and associated timber, paper and pulp industries are the most important economic resources. Agriculture is less important in the view of the severity of winters and its long duration. Now, when you have a statement about severity of winters and the long duration of the winter season, that again narrows the perspective or narrows the type of options that you have. Because when you have severe winters and long winter months, that means you are talking about a higher latitude. This automatically indicates the presence of higher latitudes. Now, in higher latitudes, will you experience the China type of climate? No, because China type of climate involves the shifting of the ITCZ during the summers. And the rainfall which is created during the summer months is basically because of the shifting of the ITCZ in China type. So, this is also incorrect, and ITCZ we know can never occur in the higher latitudes. So, here summer rains occur due to shifting of the ITCZ, okay, due to the ITCZ. And ITCZ can never exist in the higher latitudes. So, that is how automatically you are able to eliminate the options now. This climatic region is found in the northern hemisphere only. China type climate on the other hand can be found in certain stretches of the southern hemisphere as well. Fishing is the most outstanding economic activity. That is, fishing is an important economic resource here also. So, all of that indicates the Laurentian type of climate. Laurentian type of climate is basically somewhere in between the British type and the Siberian type. British type in the sense that it is influenced by the maritime conditions. That is what we refer to as the British type, that everyday occurrence of rainfall etc. that is observed. So, there you have those characteristics during the summer months where marine influence and maritime influence makes it a slightly conducive and tolerable condition. But then when the winter months come, that is when the Siberian type of climate of extreme high pressure, long dry winters, they take over. So, agriculture is not one of the prominent activities of the area, and only some of the very sturdy and hardy crops such as rye, such as barley, such as potatoes, they can be grown. But for around 6 to 7 months, you don't have any cultivation carried out because the ground is covered under thick blanket of snow and ice. So what that means is that people in that region will always search for other additional economic activities to help them earn some income. So that is why lumbering is very relevant, because the forest cover is also going to be significantly dense. Why? Because in the summer months you have moisture, and in the winter months when the loss of moisture is less, that is when you have dry conditions. So densely forested hardwood trees can be found, and that is where it is used for lumbering. So Laurential climate is the correct answer for the first question. Moving on to the second question. This is about the ocean circulation and the ocean currents. So the first statement is, consider the following statements regarding the Sargasso Sea. So where is Sargasso Sea present? Sargasso Sea is present in the region of Northern Atlantic. And this Sargasso Sea is basically an enclosure of water body itself. It is present in the region around the subtropical high pressure. That is where it is present, subtropical high pressure. Okay. Now, subtropical high pressure means that there is absolute low wind movement exactly at the portion of the high pressure, and hence that lack of wind movement means lack of water circulation also. The term Sargasso is derived from the Portuguese term sargassum, which refers to seaweeds. Okay. So this was basically discovered long time back around the 1400s and the 1500s by the Portuguese sailors and explorers who found this entire large area being covered by seaweed, and there was not such movement or any kind of movement in form of ocean currents. So that is why they named it as, based upon sargassum, they named it as Sargasso Sea. Now, while it is very significantly beneficial for the local biodiversity, you will have a lot of species of fishes and various different type of faunal species growing around this seaweed. But when it comes to navigation, it is a nightmare, because the seaweed can oftentimes get trapped within the propellers of the ships, and that is when the movement becomes distorted. So it is the only sea without land borders? That is correct. Sargasso Sea overall is surrounded by the oceanic circulation. So if you consider the oceanic circulation in the Northern Atlantic, you have the North Equatorial Current. Now that is where you have the initial motion of the ocean currents aided by the trade winds. Now this North Equatorial Current morphs into the Gulf Stream, which is one of the strongest and the most powerful warm water currents that you will find, right? Now this Gulf Stream then moves and morphs into the North Atlantic Drift. And then after that, you have the return of the water with the help of the cold Canary Current. Now, while you have this circulation in the entirety of the Northern Atlantic, you will find that, for example, the North Equatorial Current, when it is moving, it is able to drag waters closer to it to some extent. Here, it will be able to drag water closer to it to some extent. The water next to it, maybe to a little extent, like that. Eventually, as you move to the central portion of the Atlantic, the movement due to the ocean current starts reducing. So, in this larger area, you have no circulation at all, and all around it there is a circulation. So because of that, the water level also rises up ever so slightly. This is a fundamental driven by a geographical principle that we refer to as Ekman spiral and Ekman transport, which talks about, not so much relevant for the portion of GS, but then this is the fundamental driving the Sargasso Sea. While UPSC will ask you questions about Sargasso Sea, UPSC doesn't ask you questions in GS about Ekman transport. So It is the Ekman transport and Ekman spiral which is generated, whereby what does it indicate in simpler terms? That if, let's suppose, on the surface the movement induced in the water is like this, then as you move slightly to the subsurface, the movement will be less, but it will be slightly bent also. So let's suppose on the surface the movement is in this direction, slightly on the subsurface the movement will be like this and will be lesser. As you go below that, again the movement will be like this. So like that, you will have a kind of a movement as you go into the depth, somewhat like this. So that means the central portion remains undisturbed. It is like a funnel which is created. On the surface, you have the widest circulation. As you go into the depth, the circulation reduces and it induces a kind of a conical shape of undisturbed water. That is what we refer as the Sargasso Sea. So it is the only sea without land borders is a correct statement. Canary Current establishes the Sargasso Sea's western boundary. This is incorrect because Canary Current is present on the eastern boundary, not on the western boundary. Western boundary, you have the presence of Gulf Stream. So here the second statement is incorrect. So you have to find out which of the statements given above is or are correct. The answer is going to be A, one only. Okay. Now, after that, the next question. Consider the following statements. Continental shelf is a rich source of biodiversity, petroleum and natural gas. Now, continental shelf areas, these are the regions immediately bordering the shoreline, and there you have the availability of sunlight also. So, continental shelf area, the region of continental shelf, the depth is shallow, isn't it? So, you will have shallow depth. Along with the shallow depth, that means it will be a photic zone. That means availability of sunlight. And if it is a photic zone, means biomass will be high, right? Productivity will be high. So, automatically greater biodiversity. And it is in these shelf regions where you will find that various different marine species, the dead marine species would have been deposited and led to the formation of natural gas and crude oil over a period of millions of years. So, it is a rich source of biodiversity, petroleum and natural gas, correct. Overall, across the oceans of the world, continental shelves are going to represent only around 7 to 8 to 9% of the entire oceanic area. Think about it and listen to this carefully. Across the globe, continental shelves represent only around 7 to 9% of the oceanic area. But they end up consisting of 90% of the biodiversity in the oceans. So, in the 7 to 8% of the oceanic area, 90% of the biodiversity is living. That is how important these shelf areas are. Then you have submarine canyons, which are steep-sided valleys cut into the floor of the seas. That is correct. So, submarine canyons, they are very narrow valleys. How are they created? So, when we talk about these submarine canyons, basically you have this created as a result of erosion. So, there are two forces which are responsible. One is at the mouth of larger rivers, where larger rivers such as Ganga, Godavari, Indus, they have carved out in the region of the continental shelf, in the region of the continental slope, a deep narrow cut valley. So, mouth of larger rivers, Mississippi, Ganga, Indus, etc. And second, in the areas where the river is not flowing, but you still have the presence of these canyon-like structures, and that is going to be what? It is going to be the factor of turbidity current. Turbidity current is what? It is basically the backflow induced by the waves of mud, sand, pebbles, etc. So, if you consider this to be the land area, let us suppose the shelf region, and let us suppose here you have water. So, when the waves they follow the swash and the backwash, you would have also observed that many of the times these water they carry some amount of sand, pebbles, mud, ooze all these gravel in the downward slope. And when that flows in the downward slope, oftentimes they can gain a speed of close to around 45 to 50 kilometer per hour. That backflow of these particles, that is what we refer to as turbidity current. So that is how the submarine canyons are created. So they are steep-sided valleys cut into the floor of the seas, that is correct. The continental shelf found on the western coast of India is much wider than that of the eastern coast. This is also correct. Why? Because when we talk about the western coast has been created, it is a submergent coast. Always remember this. Between the western coast is known as the submergent coast, and the eastern coast is referred to as emergent coast. What is the difference between them? Submergent means that in the region of the Western Ghats, let's suppose earlier you had a landform in the region of the Western Ghats somewhat like this. This was the region of the west, this was the region of the east. Now, when Indian plate collided with the Eurasian landmass, the impact of the collision was so huge while folding created the Himalayas, something that we all know about. But the impact was so huge, it created various cracks and faults. And that is when a crack was created across the western side, and this portion simply underwent subsidence. That is when across the western coast, you had a kind of a feature somewhat like this. And that is why Western Ghats, they are known as what? They are known as an escarpment. They are not known as hills or mountains. The Western Ghats, they are an escarpment. Whereas the eastern coast is known as the emergent coast. That is, when you talk about the region of Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, so from the time of the last ice age, there has been a rise. The land has slightly tilted. So the portions here, they have risen slightly above water. So here you will observe that the shelf area is slightly smaller, but here the shelf area is wider. Having said that, when you take a look at the coastal regions, the western coast still offers you deeper waters right up till the coastline. And those deeper waters mean that it is ideally situated for construction of natural ports and harbors. That is why western coast is considered to be much more suitable for ports and harbors, whereas eastern coast is not. Other than the exception of Visakhapatnam port, you don't have these natural ports to be present across the eastern part. For example, when you consider the Ennore or the Kamarajar port, lot of digging and dredging is required on an annual basis to maintain that port because it is shallow, whereas the western coast deeper. So here all the three statements are correct. So the correct answer is C. Now, this is a match the following with regards to the peaks and the region where you will find them. So when we talk about Mahendragiri, Mahendragiri is one of the highest peaks in the region of Eastern Ghats, having a height of close to around 1500 meters, is situated in the state of Odisha. So the first one is correctly matched. Then when you talk about Doda Beta, Doda Beta is one of the highest peaks in the southern part of India, having a height of close to around 2200 meters. It is to be found in the region of Nilgiris. So this is incorrectly matched. Anaimudi again is found at the confluence of Cardamom, Annamalai and Palni hills. It is not to be found in the region of Nilgiris, again incorrectly matched. And when you talk about Dhupgarh, it is a hillock, a hill which is significant in the region of Mahadev hills. So here you will find two of them are correctly matched and the remaining two they are not. Doda Beta in the Nilgiris, Anaimudi at the confluence of the Cardamom, Annamalai and Palani hills. Okay. Now moving on to the next question associated with agriculture. This crop, so this is a description of the crop and we have to find out which crop is being talked about. This crop is tropical as well as subtropical in nature. Now, the crop is either grown on plantations or small holdings wherever rainfall and sunshine are abundant. Now, rainfall needs to be abundant, sunshine needs to be abundant. So, abundant rainfall and sunshine eliminates cotton. Right? Cotton is the one which requires little amount of rainfall, 50 to 75 centimeter of rainfall, sufficient for cotton. Right? Now, here other than that, it requires annual rainfall between 75 to 100 centimeter. This automatically eliminates jute and tea. Because when you talk about jute and tea, both of them require more than 150 centimeter of rainfall. Okay. Both of them. In jute, you require the availability of rainfall distributed through the pre-monsoon showers into the advancement of the monsoon and going ahead. In tea, you require the high amount of availability of rainfall, but no standing water. So, that is why you need sloping area. Sloping land needs to be available. Irrigation is required in the regions of low rainfall in order to compensate for the loss of water. So, the correct answer for this is sugarcane. Sugarcane growing regions in India are where? You have Uttar Pradesh, you have Maharashtra, some portions of Punjab also. But nowadays, there is a drastic shift where majority of the sugarcane growing regions are shifting to the south. You have Karnataka, Telangana, parts of Andhra Pradesh, then Maharashtra has always been dominant. Tamil Nadu also has been witnessing a rise in sugarcane plantations. Because in the southern part of the country, the conditions for growth are ideal for around almost 10 months. Whereas in northern part of the country, the growing conditions are ideal only for around 6 to 8 months. So, the longer growing season in southern part means that the development is better, sucrose content gets higher, and it is much more valuable, more sugar can be extracted out of it. Okay? Now, the next question. Consider the following statements about ocean currents. The presence of warm ocean currents along the Peruvian coast results in good monsoonal rainfall in India. Now, warm waters near the Peruvian coast. Under normal conditions, Peru coast has got cold currents. What is that? The Humboldt or the Peru current, that is the cold current. But when you have warm water across the Peruvian coast, indicates which condition? It indicates El Nino. The conditions of El Nino. The conditions of El Nino means what? India will receive less rains. Less rains in India. Last year we had experienced that, isn't it? So, it results in good monsoonal rainfall? Incorrect. Then, presence of Canary current across the western coast of Africa can contribute to the formation of Sahara Desert. We do know that cold ocean currents across the western margin of the continents, they aid in the formation of the deserts. How? Because they can create in that area a condition of temperature inversion. And that condition of temperature inversion means less rainfall or no rainfall at all, further facilitation of a desert condition. So, the second statement is correct. The third statement, presence of cold Labrador currents across the east coast of America freezes their ports for several months. Now, when you talk about the northeastern coast of Africa or northeastern coast of North America rather. So, in the northeastern coast of North America, around the region of Labrador Sea, from the higher latitude to the lower latitude, you have the movement of a cold ocean current, that is the Labrador current. Now, this Labrador current, if you consider, let's suppose the stretches of North America here, let's suppose. Now, this cold Labrador current, it tucks in very close to the coastline. While you have the warm Gulf Stream moving here, but this cold current sneaks through here. And that can create very harsh cold conditions across the eastern coast of US, particularly the northeastern coast of US. There, the unusual harsh cold conditions which are created by the Labrador current, that is also what is referred to as the cold wall. Because it is kind of a wall, cold wall, which separates the mainland from the warm water of the Gulf Stream. That is why it creates very harsh cold conditions. So, this is correct statement. Presence of warm ocean currents across the eastern coast of South America leads to the formation of pampas. Pampas are present where? Pampas are present in the region of Argentina. In the region of Argentina, that is where you have the formation of these grasslands known as pampas. So there, in these particular areas, you have these warm currents lowering the temperature, not allowing the temperature to go to the extremity, and that is what maintains the ideal condition for temperate grassland, particularly to the south of the Gran Chaco region. In the region of northern Argentina, you have Gran Chaco. So to the south of it, you have the position and the location of the pampas. So this is also correct here. So how many of the above statements given above are correct? You have C, that is 3 of them are correct. Now the next question. Consider these statements about oceanic salinity, the salt content present in the oceans. The highest salinity is recorded between 15° and 20° latitudes. This is correct. Why? Because this is a region again of a high pressure. Right. Now in the region of high pressure, precipitation or rainfall will be absolutely very low. Right. It is a subtropical high pressure, whereas the evaporation, the rate of evaporation would be considerably high. So overall, you have a net removal of water molecules while the salt content gets left behind. That is why across the globe, the most saline water bodies that you will find, be it Lake Van, be it the Dead Sea, be it the Salt Lake, all of them are present in the region of the tropics. That too, when you compare between the northern and the southern hemisphere, it is the northern hemisphere which has got higher level of salinity. Then the North Sea is located in higher latitudes and hence records minimum salinity. This is incorrect. North Sea does record a level of high salinity condition. Why? Because North Sea is influenced by the warm waters brought by the North Atlantic Drift and also which is a carry forward of the Gulf Stream which eventually culminates into the North Atlantic Drift. So these warm waters induce a rate of evaporation and that is why it has got a higher level of salinity, not a minimum salinity. Black Sea records higher salinity due to high rate of evaporation. This is also incorrect. Black Sea overall records a lower salinity level. Why? Because here in the region of Black Sea, influx of river water is very high. Influx of river water is very high. So when you have a very high influx of river waters, what does that mean? Addition of water, net addition of water molecules, lowering the salinity levels. The Mediterranean Sea records lower salinity due to the enormous freshwater influx by the rivers. Now this is incorrect. Mediterranean Sea on the other hand records a higher salinity. Why? Because again in the region of the subtropics, the rate of evaporation is very high. The rate of evaporation is significantly very high. So that is why it is incorrect. So how many of the above are correct? The correct answer is going to be A, that is only 1 which is correct, the remaining are incorrect. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements about tsunami. So what is a tsunami? Tsunamis are basically giant waves which are induced whenever there is a significant disturbance in the seawater. It is a Japanese term referring to a giant wave. Now, why do you have a giant wave? These giant waves can be created due to seismic events, that is the shaking of the seabed in itself. Then also created by a massive volcanic eruption. For example, the Tonga eruption of 2022 in itself induced a tsunami that traveled across the southern Pacific and impacted the people in the Peruvian coastline. So that is how even massive volcanic eruptions can also induce an associated seismicity. So that can also cause tsunamis. Now, wherever this disturbance has happened, let's suppose if you consider this to be the water body, the ocean rather. Now, if there is a disturbance here due to a seismic event, now a wave will be created like a ripple effect here and will move in all directions. Now, when you are in deeper waters, the movement will be very high. There is nothing obstructing the waves. But let's suppose when you come in the shallower waters, there the waves hit an obstruction. And that is when the speed reduces, the waves break as well. This is the reason why corals and coral reefs are said to be one of the natural protectors of the coastline, because they can slow down the speed of the tsunami generated waves, and they can also lead to the break of the waves. So, tsunamis is a sudden displacement of ocean water in the form of a high vertical wave. This is correct. The speed of the tsunami wave is less in the shallow water as compared to the deep ocean. This is also correct, because in the shallow waters there is resistance by the sea floor. All earthquakes do cause tsunami. This is an absolute statement. Absolute statements generally are automatically incorrect. For example, recently you had a massive earthquake in Taiwan, but that did not trigger a tsunami. Warnings were issued, but tsunami did not occur. So this is where, how many of the above statements are correct? Answer will be B, that is 2 of them are correct. Now, consider the following pairs: major iron ore producing regions and the state where they are located. Starting with the first one, you have Mayurbhanj. Now, Mayurbhanj, Sundargarh, these are the areas in Odisha, right? These are rich iron ore reserves which are present. So, Mayurbhanj in Odisha is correctly matched. Sundargarh in Chhattisgarh, incorrect. Sundargarh is also situated in the region of Odisha, right? You have the region of Bastar, which is rich in the Durg-Bastar belt in Chhattisgarh, which is rich in terms of iron ore. Singhbhum is present where? In Jharkhand, in the region around Hazaribagh plateau and so on. That is where you have the presence of Singhbhum, again very rich in iron reserves. So, this is also incorrectly matched. And then you have Bellary. Bellary, Tumkuru, Chikmagalur belt in Karnataka is one of the abundant reserves of iron ore, and that too hematite ore which is present. So, here this is also incorrectly matched. So, Sundargarh present where? In Odisha. Singhbhum present where? Jharkhand. Bellary in Karnataka. So, how many of the pairs given above are correctly matched? You have A, that is only one. In terms of iron ore distribution, it can be relevant for your prelims. Understand that when we talk about magnetite, the purest form of iron ore, it is to be found in the region of Karnataka, Rajasthan, portions of Andhra Pradesh, and some areas of Tamil Nadu as well. When we talk about hematite, hematite predominantly is found in 4 different belts. The 4 belts are the Singhbhum Mayurbhanj belt, that is Jharkhand Odisha belt, right? The Jharkhand Odisha belt, where you have Mayurbhanj, Sundargarh, Singhbhum, Hazaribagh, the entire region. Then you have Durg, Bastar, Chandrapur belt. This is southern Chhattisgarh and eastern Maharashtra. Chandrapur is in Maharashtra. Then you have the Tumkur, Chikmagalur, Bellary belt, Chitradurg, Bellary belt. Okay. So, here for example, you have the Kudremukh reserves. Kudremukh, which literally translates into a horse's head, that is one of the most abundant reserves that you find across the country in terms of good grade of iron ore. And then you have the Konkan belt, that is the Ratnagiri Goa belt. There also you have hematite. So, these are the major regions of iron ore reserves in India. So, A is the answer for this, 1 is correctly matched. Which of the following coal types is the lowest grade of coal with the lowest carbon content and the high moisture content? So coal in terms of the carbon content is classified into 4 different types in terms of the abundance of carbon: anthracite, bituminous, peat and lignite. Now lignite is the poorest grade of coal, where it still has the woody properties. The transformation has not been complete. It will represent a kind of a layered structure and it will be very woody in nature. It will burn with lot of smoke, very little amount of heat. Impurity level such as sulfur, etc. will be very high. Okay? So generally used in low grade industrial purposes, small scale cottage industries. Where do you find them? In the region around Lakhimpur in Assam, in the region around, when you talk about Tamil Nadu, Neyveli region of Tamil Nadu, these are the areas where you have the lignite presence. So here the process of carbonification would have been initiated only around 50-55 million years ago. So they belong to the grade of the tertiary coal deposits. Carbonification, how early it begins, leads to the different characteristic of the amount of carbon. If the carbonification has been initiated around 350 million years ago, as is the case with portions of South Africa, Indonesia, Australia, there you have anthracite kind of coal. If it has been initiated around 250 million years ago, that is when you find bituminous. Bituminous in India, or the Gondwana grade coal in India, to be found in the Damodar River Valley, Mahanadi, Godavari River Valley, and in general in the Chota Nagpur and the Bastar and Karnataka plateaus. Okay? So here the answer is D, that is lignite. With reference to the Indus River, consider the following statements. Indus River originates from the glacier in the Kailash mountain range very close to Lake Mansarovar from the Bokharchu glacier. Bokharchu glacier is where it originates. Okay? It initially moves in the northwestern direction, enters the region of Ladakh, is joined by tributaries, the small Himalayan tributaries like Nubra, Shyok, Gilgit is also a subtributary. Then you have, for example, Galwan is a subtributary, secondary tributary of Indus. It joins river Shyok, and then Shyok joins Indus. Then you have Gilgit, Hunza, Shigar, Dras, Kabul. All of these are the small Himalayan tributaries, and from the left hand side it is joined by the famous Panjnad, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Byas and Satluj. Out of these, Chenab is the largest tributary of river Indus, which meets river Indus at Mithankot in Pakistan. So it originates from a glacier in Kailash mountain range, correct. The Satluj is the largest tributary of Indus, it is Chenab. The Indus flows in India only through the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. No, even through the region of Ladakh is where it drains. So here the correct answer is A, that is only 1. Now, after this, we come to the portion of environment and the questions associated with the portion of environment. Overall, in the portion of geography, as you would have seen, even when it comes to mineral resources, even when it comes to rivers, if you have the basic concepts in place, this is an easy go. Maybe you might have committed mistakes in the Dhupgarh and Mahendragiri hills matching, but other than that, it can be put under moderate category for the entire questions, and the same is something that you will have in the case of environment as well. So let us take a look at the questions for environment. Consider the following regions. How many of the above regions have been classified as biodiversity hotspots? Now, biodiversity hotspots, what are those? These are endangered areas of biodiversity where you have high amount of biodiversity endemism. Endemism is a key factor. What is endemism or what is being endemic? It refers to the fact that a particular species is found only in that area and nowhere else. So, if a particular region fulfills 2 criteria, that is, has at least 1500 vascular plants as endemic, right, and around 70% has been lost or the region is endangered, that is when the region is declared as a biodiversity hotspot. You have 4 biodiversity hotspots which partially or completely lie in Indian territory. You have the Himalayan biodiversity hotspot, you have the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot in the east, heavily forested and also high mountainous areas. Then you have the Western Ghats and the Sri Lanka biodiversity hotspot. And in the region of Great Nicobar, stretching from the region of Great Nicobar southwards into the area of Indonesia, you basically have the Sundaland biodiversity hotspot. So, out of these, which of the regions have been classified as biodiversity hotspot? Western Ghats, Indo-Burma and Himalayas. Eastern Ghats and Lakshadweep, you don't have the existence of biodiversity hotspots there. So, how many of them basically have been classified? The correct answer is B, only 3. Now, the next question. Consider the following countries. How many of the above are mega diverse countries? What do we understand by mega diversity? Mega diverse countries are those where at least 5,000 species of endemic plants, right? 5,000 unique species of endemic plants. That indicates that the biodiversity is significant and necessarily have a marine ecosystem within its borders. Okay, in the territory or in the country. So, the classification of mega diverse countries is done in order to bring about increased awareness and increased accountability when it comes to the process of conservation. That is why you have the declaration of the region as mega diverse countries. Mega diverse countries, they are going to be very prominent in the region of the tropics. As you move away from the tropics, that is where you have lesser mega diverse countries. In Europe, for example, you don't have mega diverse countries at all, partly because of the deforestation and the hunting and the poaching which has been carried out, and partly because of the colder climate not allowing so many different plant species. So, out of all these, you will find that other than Norway and Japan, the remaining are mega diverse countries here. So, how many of the above are mega diverse countries? You will find B, that is only 5 is the correct answer. You have around 17 mega diverse countries across the world. Do you need to learn all of them? No. What do you need to understand? What are the conditions required for a country to be declared as mega diverse? Okay. Now, a passage or a paragraph type question regarding a protected area. So, a biosphere, this biosphere reserve lies at the southernmost tip of Western Ghats, spreading over the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. If it would have been Karnataka also, then you could have thought about Nilgiri. But it is only Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So, Nilgiri is eliminated. It is the home to the Kanikaran, one of the oldest surviving tribes in the world. That automatically brings you to the answer, that is Agastyamalai Biosphere Reserve. Now, Kanikaran is one of the oldest surviving tribes living in that area. Then you have the Kalakad and the Mundanthurai Tiger Reserve, which is a part of this biosphere reserve. Here you will find tiger, Asiatic elephant and also the Nilgiri tar. And that is the characteristic of the Agastyamalai. Sheshachalam, where it is present? Sheshachalam is present in the region of Andhra Pradesh, very famous for red sanders. Gulf of Mannar, where is it present? In Tamil Nadu, right? Famous for marine areas. Nilgiri, predominantly in Karnataka. So, the locational aspect in itself will also help you reach the correct answer here. Okay? Now, consider the following objectives. How many of the above objectives of Project Lion document titled Lion at 47, 2047 Vision for Amritkal? So, this Project Lion, which was initiated around 2021, that has morphed into the Project Lion or Lion at 47 vision for Amritkal, that what is the foreseeable future and the planning for the future for the lion species. In India, you have majority of the lion species or all the lion, that is Asiatic lion, restricted in the region of the Gir mountains or the Gir ranges of Gujarat. That is why the famous Gir lions, right? Now, you will find that there has been a significant amount of effort to relocate the lions in order to ensure that there is at least a locational diversity so that the lion population is not vulnerable, right? It is the Barda Wildlife Sanctuary which is being seen as one of the possible destination for lion relocation program. So, doubling the population of Asiatic lions by 2025, that can never be the target of a project which was initiated around 3 years back. Okay. Scaling up livelihood generation and participation of local communities. So, based upon the experience of the Maldhari tribe, in the region of Gujarat, you have two of the important areas that can be relevant for your prelims. One is the Maldhari tribe. Maldhari tribe, which lives in the Girnar region, now they have coexisted with the lion population for centuries now. They know how to behave around the lions, and basically they don't get aggravated, they don't bring out the man-animal conflict even if their cattle are attacked by the lion species. So, that coexistence is very vital, which indicates that conservation can be sustainable and long-lasting. Then India becoming a global hub of knowledge on big cat disease diagnostic and treatment, that is also a part of the Project Lion, and it is under the larger aim of India to be a hub of big cat population, be it the tigers, be it the lion, be it the leopard, and it is with that view that India became a participant of the International Big Cat Alliance. So, here out of 2 and 3, 2 and 3 are actually correct, 1 is incorrect. So, the correct answer in this case will be B, that is only 2. Now, with reference to Project Tiger, consider the following statements. It is a centrally sponsored scheme of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change that was launched in 1973 to protect tigers in India. This is in fact correct. Now, recently, that is last year, you had the culmination of the 50-year celebration of Project Tiger, which was held at the Bandipur Tiger Reserve and was commemorated by the Prime Minister's visit to the Bandipur Tiger Reserve. So, that marked the 50 years and indicated a progress. Around 1973, the consensus which was made was that tiger population needs to be conserved, because the tiger population at that point of time was counted to be around 1400, which was not sustainable. And immediately at the backdrop of Stockholm Conference, where India was an active advocate of nature conservation, Project Tiger was a natural outcome there. So, that is when it was launched. Project Elephant launched much later, 1992. Now, National Tiger Conservation Authority is the implementing authority of the Project Tiger, established as per the provisions of Wildlife Act 1972. This is correct, basically. So, here this is also correct. So, here you will observe that NTCA was formed in 2006, and it was formed as a result of the amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act. So, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 was amended in 2005 to make way for the constitution of NTCA. So, NTCA is a statutory organization. The establishment of a tiger reserve, demarcation of a tiger reserve is based on the recommendation of the NTCA. The boundary of the tiger reserve also cannot be altered or tinkered with unless until you have a consultation with the NTCA. So, that is how important NTCA is. So, which of the statements given above is or are correct? Here the answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. Okay? Now, the next question. The name of the temperate grasslands and the region where they are situated. Pustas in Eurasia? No. Pustas is situated, it is a temperate grassland situated in the region of Hungary. Steppes, North America? No. Steppes is actually situated in Eurasia. Pampas, temperate grassland in Argentina? Correct. Veld, Again, grassland in South Africa, correct. Downs, grasslands in Australia, correct. Other than this, the major temperate grasslands, you have prairies in North America and you have Canterbury in the region of New Zealand, right. These are the major temperate grassland. Prairies in North America and you have Canterbury in New Zealand. Okay. These are, including all of them, that is a list of all the major temperate grasslands of the world. So, how many of the above pairs are correctly matched? You have B, that is only 3. 3 of them are correctly matched. Then, Global Forest Watch is an open source web application created by World Resources Institute with the help of Google and other such small organizations. The purpose is to have the monitoring of the forest ecosystem with the help of analysis of the satellite data, which gives you an idea about the tree cover change. The tree cover change is an indicator of the change when it comes to the forest density and the canopy cover as well. So, here released by water, or it is basically an open source application so that everybody can monitor it. It is by World Resource Institute. Then recently in India, artificial reefs have been established across various coastal regions. First of the coast of Puducherry, then of the coast of Mumbai, then of the coast of Kerala as well. In this context, consider the following. Now, these artificial reefs, they protect coastline from the effect of storms and flooding. Absolutely correct. They boost fish resources. So, these artificial reefs, they are created how? They are created by the purpose of the bio-rock technology. Bio-rock technology, right? Where recycled steel, recycled cement, etc., that is put at the marine base and underwater, and that is where you have small amount of electric charge which is passed, and in that submerged mesh of steel, of concrete, etc., when the small charge is passed, electrolysis takes place and calcium carbonate that starts settling in. This calcium carbonate exoskeleton will allow the floating corals to come over. Firstly, you have some bacterial species forming a kind of a thin film on top, and then the floating corals, they come, they germinate here, and that is when the entire coral reef system is established. So, that is why they will boost the fish resource also, because the biodiversity will increase. Mitigating shore erosion. So, here these artificial reefs, they will weaken the impact of the waves. Just we have discussed, as in the case of the tsunami, they will weaken the impact of the waves. So, that is when the waves themselves become weaker, they are not so strong enough, that is when you will experience that the coastal erosion, which is a sad state of matter in regions such as Sriharikota, our satellite launch station. So, there the coastal erosion, due to it, we are losing a lot of land every year. So, there it can be of significant help. Then, creating high value biodiversity hotspots. With the increase in biodiversity, it will attract a various variety of different species flocking into that area. So, this is also correct. So, how many of the above can be the benefits of establishment of artificial reefs off the coast of India? So, the correct answer in this case is going to be D, that is all 4. All 4 of them are the benefits. Okay? Now, the next question. Consider the following statements regarding microplastics. Microplastics are plastic fragments less than 10 millimeters in length. This is incorrect. Less than 5 millimeters. Okay. Now, they are of 2 types. One is the primary microplastic, which is directly emitted from the polluting sources. Other is a secondary microplastic, where you have a large existing plastic bag, maybe it has broken down, it has disintegrated into smaller fragments. So, the one which is directly emitted from the source of pollution, that is a primary microplastic. The one which is created due to the degradation of existing plastic, that is what is a secondary microplastic, but their size has to be less than 5 millimeters. Microbeads, a type of microplastic, are used as exfoliants by various cosmetics for health and beauty products. Right. So, they are used in wide variety of cosmetics, of wellness creams, etc. That is where microbeads slowly and steadily start impacting the skin, and they penetrate the skin into the body system as well. So, microbeads, they also have the ability to penetrate into the body system through the skin pores. So, this is correct. Microplastics have been detected in clouds also. Everywhere across the planet you will find the presence of plastic. Microplastics can accumulate in the tissue of organisms and transfer toxic chemicals associated with the plastic particles to the food chain. This is correct. Bioaccumulation, biomagnification, and imagine if the clouds and the rainfall, they also bring plastic. Imagine how disastrous it will be for the biodiversity, particularly marine biodiversity. So, here you have three statements which are correct. So, the correct answer is C. That is, only all the three of the statements are correct, one is incorrect. Now, consider the following pairs about the wildlife sanctuary and the state where it is situated. You have the region of Kambalkond in Andhra Pradesh. This is correctly matched. Then Ettur in Telangana. This is also correctly matched. Why Ettur and Kambalkondam have been in use? Ettur has been in use owing to the region being declared, or the area having cited lot of presence of tiger population, and also Ettur has experienced forest fire in the recent past. That is why it has been in use. Changthang, it is not situated in Arunachal Pradesh. Where is it situated? It is situated in the region of Ladakh. Okay. So, the third statement is incorrect. So, how many pairs are correctly matched? The answer will be B, that is only 2, right. Now, Global E-Waste Monitor 2024 report, recently seen in news, is released by which one of the following organization? E-Waste report. The amount of e-waste generated in the coming years is going to quadruple as per the report. So, this has been released by United Nations Institute for Training and Research in partnership with International Telecommunication Union. International Telecommunication Union, right. So, that is ITU. Okay. So, here B is the correct answer. It is basically, for this report, you do not have to read into the details of it, because the report is on the expected lines that overall the amount of e-waste generated is increasing. The processing capabilities of the countries, developing countries, is much less as compared to the amount of e-waste that they are producing. So, that is where adaptation has to be given priority, and funding and technical assistance needs to be provided to the poorer countries. Countries such as India is going to see almost a 4-fold increase in e-waste production from now to the year 2050. Okay? Now, consider the following statements with reference to ecosystem engineers. What do we understand by ecosystem engineers? These are those particular species which either modify their own body systems, own biological processes, or they end up modifying their surrounding, and that is how the entire ecosystem changes. They are of two types. You have autogenic engineers, and you also have allogenic. So, autogenic, for example, consider a tree. So, when the tree grows from a sapling to a full grown tree, there is a massive change in terms of its biodiversity that it can support. For example, when you have a small sapling, let us suppose, right. Now, the number of species that it can host at this point of time will be very limited, maybe a couple of bugs here or there, couple of insects, worms, etc. But when you consider a full grown tree, from parasites to birds, the entire ecosystem will be established here. So, you can see that this particular species has modified its internal biological process, and the ecosystem it has established because of that. So that is autogenic. But you have allogenic also. Few of the species, they modify their external surroundings. For example, consider the case of beavers. Beavers are the greatest natural dam builders. They block the flow of water and create a stagnant water system, which allows them to raise their young ones in safety. So these are allogenic. They modify the ecosystem. Autogenic, they modify themselves, right? So autogenic engineers physically change biotic and abiotic materials in their habitats, whereas allogenic engineers alter their environment by making changes to their own structure. It is actually the exact opposite. So this is incorrect. Termites and earthworms are examples of ecosystem engineers. This is correct because they end up carrying huge amount of materials from wood pieces, etc., and they create a new region, a new ecosystem themselves. Corals are ecosystem engineers because the growth of their calcium carbonate exoskeleton creates biogenic structure on which the entire ecosystem then depends. That is, the zooxanthellae come because of that calcium carbonate exoskeleton, isn't it? So this is also correct. So how many statements given above are correct? The answer is B, that is only 2. Then the next question. Consider the following statements in the context of the type of species, keystone and indicator species. So keystone species are those which are very vital for the sustenance of the entire ecosystem. Indicator species are those which give you an idea about the health of the ecosystem. You have the foundation species which establish the ecosystem like the corals, and you also have the flagship species which are brands or ambassadors or mascots for a larger global cause. So keystone species is a species selected to act as an ambassador, icon or symbol for defined habitat, issue or campaign. Incorrect. This description is that of flagship species. For example, elephants, for example, pandas. These are examples of flagship species. Then an indicator species is a species that plays an essential role in the structure, functioning and productivity of a habitat. No, it is a description again of keystone species. Example, tigers. Okay. All the flagship species are keystone species. Incorrect. It is an absolute term. Lichens are regarded as indicator species because they act as indicators of air quality. This is correct. Particularly the sulfur load in the air. Sulfur contamination in air. Where you have high sulfur load, you will not find the presence of lichens. Where you have low sulfate amount, that is where lichens would be present. That is why it is considered to be a monitor of air pollution. Air pollution increases, lichen population decreases. So here, how many of the statements are correct? The answer is A, that is only 1. Okay. Now, what is common between Mandasaru, Mahendragiri, Gupteshwar forest and Gandhamardhan, sometimes seen in news? So, why this is in news? Because recently Gupteshwar forest has been declared as biodiversity heritage site. All of these are situated in Odisha. They are the biodiversity heritage sites in Odisha. When we talk about biodiversity heritage sites, these are declared by the state government based on the recommendation of the district level biodiversity committee that you have. So, as per the Biodiversity Act, you have the National Biodiversity Authority, state biodiversity boards, and also you have the Biodiversity Management Committee at the district level. So, the Biodiversity Management Committee at the district level picks up a recommendation based upon whether you have an important keystone species, a different variety of a species, maybe a cultural landscape which requires conservation. So, all these are kept in mind, and then you have the recommendation sent to the state biodiversity boards, and then with the prior approval, the state government can declare it as a biodiversity heritage site as per the provisions of Biodiversity Act 2002. So, the correct answer is B, One of the latest additions has been the Gupteshwar forest in Odisha. Forest areas of which of the following comprise the Tarai Elephant Reserve? Tarai Elephant Reserve is amongst the latest and one of the larger elephant reserves which has been declared for the conservation of elephant. As the name in itself suggests, it is located in the Tarai region, that is immediately at the foothills of the Shivalik in the area of Uttar Pradesh. So, which of the forest areas are included in that? So, you have Pilibhit, Dudhwa, Kishanpur and Katarnia Ghat Wildlife Sanctuary situated in the entire Tarai Elephant Reserve. Here, other than elephant, you will find a viable tiger population also, and also a population of one-horned rhinos to be found in the region around Nepal also and in the surrounding area of Uttar Pradesh also, northern Uttar Pradesh. So, here the correct answer is A. Now, with reference to mangroves, consider the following statement. Mangroves require low solar radiation and have the ability to absorb fresh water from brackish water. This is incorrect. They require higher amount of solar insolation. It is not as if they will require lower amount of solar insolation. That is why they are to be found in the tropics and the subtropical region. Mangroves are salt tolerant plant communities, correct, found in only subtropical intertidal regions. They are to be found within the tropics as well. Mangroves exhibit viviparity mode of reproduction. This is correct. Viviparity means where, let's suppose, a branch of the tree, you will have the sapling growing from the branch itself. As it grows slightly larger, then it will drop and have its own base established and then it will mature. This is done in order to avoid the draining away of the young saplings by the intertidal water movement. That is why they start growing within the main body stem itself. Odisha has the largest mangrove cover in India? No. The region which is named after the mangrove tree, that is the Sundari mangrove tree, it is Sundarbans. Sundarbans in West Bengal has got largest mangrove cover. So, here how many of the above statements are correct? The answer is A, that is only one. Now, which one of the following best describes the process of eutrophication? What is eutrophication? Eutrophication is overloading of the aquatic ecosystem with nutrients. Nutrients such as nitrates, phosphates, etc. When you have that kind of an overloading which happens, immediately it leads to algal species blooming. Harmful algal bloom happens. Many of these species die. They are digested by the bacterium and they consume oxygen in the process of decomposition. That creates water which is devoid of oxygen, hypoxic waters. That is where many of the times you will find that green film on the water bodies and followed by many of the dead fish floating on top. That means hypoxic waters or dead zone has been created due to harmful algal bloom. So, when we talk about eutrophication, it is the excessive growth of algae in the water bodies caused by high level of nutrients leading to oxygen depletion and harm to aquatic life. When those organisms are being decomposed and degraded, that is when a foul stench is also released in the entire process. Okay? Consider the following statements in the context of soil acidification. Acidification means what? Lowering of pH value into the acidic extent. That is one of the major reasons of soil degradation in general. So, excessive application of natural nitrogen fertilizers to croplands can reduce the acidification. No. Soil acidification is a process where soil pH increases. If the soil pH increases, it becomes alkaline. Why will it become acidic? Incorrect. Soil acidification can result in the loss of soil inorganic carbon. Correct. Industrial activities and intensive farming contribute to soil acidification. This is also correct. So, how many statements are correct? B, that is 2, right? That is the correct statement there. Now, after that, the next question. Climate Crisis Commission that promotes appropriate, effective, just and nature positive and nature-based solution to the climate crisis belongs to which of the organizations. So IUCN has come up with the establishment of the Climate Crisis Commission. It is a sub-part of it, and it was a decision arrived at Marseille in France, where it was talked about the aspect of finding natural solutions such as afforestation, reforestation, etc., to combat the issue of climate change. So it is established by IUCN. And that brings us to the end of discussion, the end of the questions. Overall, if you think about all those questions, this is a wonderful opportunity to get yourself acclimatized to the scenario of UPSC and also ensure that the error rate when it comes to incorrect or correct statement, that is reduced. The focus has been on the basic concepts which are oftentimes asked in the examination. So I hope that this test has been helpful for you. Appear for the test again on 2nd of June, and that will be followed by a live discussion again. If you have liked this discussion, please do not forget to click on the like, share and the subscribe button and leave a comment about the content overall. Thank you for being patient and all the best. Goodbye. Thank you.